The security footage would later show the exact moment Ryan Cole's hand froze over the keyboard. 2:47 a.m., 4th floor, executive wing. What appeared on Vanessa Hart's private screen wasn't the quarterly reports he'd been searching for. It was her, vulnerable, unguarded, real. When her heels clicked against the marble behind him 30 seconds later, Ryan didn't close the folder. Couldn't. Their eyes met in the monitor's reflection, and she asked the question that would unravel everything they thought they knew about boundaries, trust, and the space between wanting and having. Do you think I'm pretty? Some mistakes you can undo. This wasn't one of them. If you're watching from your city tonight, Chicago, Miami, Seattle, wherever this story finds you, drop your location in the comments below and hit that like button. Let me see how far Ryan's choice travels. Because what happened next didn't just change his career, it changed everything. Ryan Cole had perfected the art of being invisible. Not in the dramatic way people talk about feeling unseen. No, Ryan had weaponized invisibility, made it tactical. At precisely 6 o'clock a.m. each morning, he'd wake his 7-year-old daughter Mia with the same gentle touch to her shoulder, the same quiet, "Morning, sweetheart," that never startled her awake. By 6:45, she'd be dressed, fed, and reviewing spelling words at their small kitchen table while Ryan packed her lunch with the precision of someone who'd done it alone for 3 years. Turkey sandwich, apple slices, the good cookies she liked, a note on a yellow post-it that always said something simple. "Proud of you. Love, Dad." He'd drop her at PS 234 by 7:30, merge into Manhattan traffic by 7:50, and slide into his desk at Hartwell & Associates by 8:15, 15 minutes before anyone else in IT arrived. The early arrival wasn't ambition, it was necessity. Those 15 minutes let him handle the overnight server issues, check system logs, and disappear any problems before the creative department upstairs even turned on their overpriced espresso machines. Ryan had learned that being indispensable meant being invisible. Fix things before they broke. Solve problems before anyone knew they existed. When you're a single father working 60 hours a week, you don't have time for office politics or visibility campaigns. You have time for competence, reliability, and getting home by 6 to help with homework. The Hartwell & Associates building occupied 18 floors of glass and steel in Midtown, the kind of place where the elevator buttons felt weighted with significance. Floors 1 through 8, operations, accounting, legal, the machinery that kept things running. Floors 9 through 15, the creative department, where concepts became campaigns and ideas became revenue. Floors 16 through 18, executive territory, where decisions happened behind closed doors and ordinary employees only went when summoned. Ryan lived on floor 4, IT operations. Gray carpets, fluorescent lights, the steady hum of servers in the adjacent room. His desk sat in the corner, positioned so he could see both the door and his monitors without turning his head. 2 screens for work, 1 personal phone face down beside his keyboard, always on vibrate in case Mia's school called. "Morning, Ryan." He glanced up. Martin Chen, the other senior IT engineer, dropped his messenger bag on the neighboring desk with a thud that suggested the Monday morning commute had been particularly brutal. "Morning," Ryan replied, fingers already moving across the keyboard, finishing the diagnostic he'd started 20 minutes ago. "You're here early again." Martin powered up his computer, squinting at the screens like they'd personally offended him. "You know they don't pay us extra for the first one in award, right?" "Just catching up on some stuff." Martin snorted. "You're always catching up on some stuff. When's the last time you left before 7? Ryan didn't answer because they both knew the truth. He left at 5:45 every single day. Not 5:30, not 6, and 5:45 gave him exactly enough time to fight crosstown traffic, pick up Mia from after-school care before they charged the late fee, and still make it home with enough daylight to feel like they'd had a real evening together. "The creative department's already putting in tickets," Martin continued, clicking through his email. "Vanessa Hart's assistant says her computer's been acting weird. Slow startup, random freezes. Wants someone up there this morning." Ryan's fingers paused, just for a second. "Vanessa Hart. The Ice Queen herself." Martin grinned. "You ever actually talk to her? Like, beyond your password's been reset?" "No." "She's intimidating as hell. Gorgeous, but intimidating. Runs that whole department like it's a military operation. I heard she made a junior designer cry last month just by looking at his color palette. Ryan returned to his diagnostic report. I'll handle her ticket after I finish this. Good luck. Try not to stare. I heard she fires people for staring. The joke hung in the air for a moment before Martin's phone buzzed and pulled him into a different crisis. Something about the VPN failing for the Los Angeles office. Ryan let the conversation die naturally, the way he let most conversations die. Not rudely, just quietly. Vanessa Hart. Everyone at Hartwell knew Vanessa Hart. She was the kind of person who commanded attention without asking for it, who walked into rooms and changed their atmospheric pressure. Ryan had seen her exactly 7 times in the 3 years he'd worked here, always from a distance, always in motion, always surrounded by assistants and department heads who moved around her like planets around the sun. She was beautiful in that carefully constructed way that seemed effortless, but absolutely wasn't. Dark hair, always perfect, clothes that probably cost more than Ryan's monthly rent, heels that clicked against marble with the rhythm of someone who'd never stumbled. Early 40s, maybe. Confident. Controlled. The kind of woman who existed in a completely different universe than a single dad from Queens who bought his dress shirts 3 for 1 at Costco. Their orbits never touched. Ryan fixed computers. Vanessa ran creative campaigns for Fortune 500 clients. They worked in the same building the way strangers lived in the same city, technically sharing space, functionally worlds apart. At 10:30, Ryan took the elevator to floor 12. The creative department looked like it belonged to a different company. White walls, open floor plans. Those expensive standing desks everyone kept writing articles about. Plants everywhere, real ones. Not the plastic versions they had downstairs. Abstract art on the walls. A coffee station that could have doubled as a cafe, complete with a barista who actually knew the difference between a macchiato and a cortado. Ryan carried his toolkit and tried not to feel like he'd wandered onto the set of a lifestyle commercial. Your IT? A young woman with geometric glasses looked up from a drafting table covered in mood boards and fabric samples. Ryan Cole. I'm here about Vanessa Hart's computer. Oh, thank God. She's been in a mood all morning because of that thing. Her office is at the end of the hall, corner suite. Just knock first. She hates when people barge in. Ryan walked the length of the floor, past designers hunched over tablets and copywriters arguing about taglines. The creative energy felt almost physical here, loud, colorful, aggressive in its enthusiasm. He'd spent so long in the quiet precision of IT that this felt like visiting a foreign country where everyone spoke slightly too fast. Vanessa Hart's office sat behind a frosted glass door, with her name in elegant silver lettering. Ryan knocked twice. Come in. The voice was crisp, professional, with an edge that suggested she'd been interrupted from something important. Ryan opened the door. The office was exactly what he'd expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Midtown, minimalist furniture that probably came from stores that didn't list prices, a desk so clean it looked staged for a magazine shoot. Vanessa stood by the windows, phone pressed to her ear, one hand gesturing as she spoke. I understand the timeline, Marcus, but understanding it doesn't make it reasonable. We need at least 2 more weeks for concept development. Otherwise, you're asking for mediocre work on an accelerated schedule. Pause. No, I'm not being difficult. I'm being realistic. Another pause, longer this time. Fine. Send me the revised brief by Thursday, but I'm going on record right now saying this is a mistake. She ended the call and turned to face Ryan. Her expression shifted from irritation to professional neutrality so smoothly it could have been choreographed. You're AT. Ryan Cole. He lifted his toolkit slightly, like evidence. Your assistant said you're having computer issues. It keeps freezing, takes forever to start up. I'm in the middle of 3 major pitches, and I can't afford to lose work because of a temperamental machine. She gestured to the desk where a sleek laptop sat closed. I backed up what I could to the cloud, but there are files I need that won't sync. Ryan approached the desk, set down his toolkit, opened the laptop. When did the problem start? 4 days ago. Small things at first. Programs taking longer to load. Then yesterday it froze completely during a video conference. I had to present campaign concepts from my phone like some kind of amateur. The laptop powered up slowly. Too slowly. Ryan watched the loading screen, mentally cataloging potential issues. Hard drive failure, corrupted OS, malware, overloaded memory. The list of possibilities was long, but his gut said hardware problem. Something physical failing. I'm going to run some diagnostics, Ryan said. It might take a while. How long is a while? An hour, maybe 2. Depends on what I find. Vanessa checked her watch, something elegant and probably Swiss. I have a meeting at 11:30. Will you be finished by then? Probably not. She studied him for a moment, and Ryan felt the weight of her attention like something tangible. Up close, Vanessa Hart was even more striking than she appeared from a distance. Not just beautiful, sharp, like every feature had been refined to its most efficient form. Fine, she said finally. I'll work from the conference room. Don't touch any files you don't need to. Everything on that computer is confidential. I understand. Do you? The question was pointed, not quite accusatory, but close. Because I've had IT people browse through documents before thinking they're being helpful. They weren't. Ryan met her gaze steadily. I'm here to fix your computer, Ms. Hart, not read your emails. Something flickered across her face, surprise maybe, or reassessment. Good. Call my assistant when you're finished. She left, taking her phone in a leather portfolio. The door closed with a soft click that somehow felt louder than a slam. Ryan released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The diagnostics took 90 minutes. The hard drive was failing, not catastrophically, but enough to cause the slowdowns and freezes Vanessa had described. Ryan could patch it temporarily, but she'd need a full replacement within the week. He made notes, checked the backup status, confirmed that her cloud sync was working properly. Then he started the file recovery process for the documents that hadn't synced. The recovery software scanned the damaged sectors of the drive, pulling fragments of data and reconstructing files. It was delicate work, the digital equivalent of archaeological excavation. Ryan monitored the progress while answering emails on his phone, checking in with Martin about a printer issue on floor 6, texting Mia's after-school program to confirm pickup time. The software flagged a folder it couldn't quite access, something corrupted in the directory structure. Ryan frowned, opened the repair utility, started the reconstruction process. The folder appeared on screen, and he clicked it open to verify the files had recovered properly. The first image loaded. Ryan's hand froze on the trackpad. It was Vanessa. Not office Vanessa, not professional Vanessa. A completely different woman. She stood on what looked like a beach at sunset, barefoot, wearing a simple white dress that the wind pressed against her body. Her hair was down, loose and natural, and she was laughing at something off camera with an expression of pure, unguarded joy. Ryan's brain stuttered. He should close this. Right now. Immediately. But his hand didn't move. The second image? Vanessa, in what had to be her apartment, curled on a couch with a book, wearing reading glasses and an oversized sweater, looking soft and approachable, and nothing like the woman who'd given him careful instructions about confidentiality. Third image? A selfie, close-up, no makeup, messy morning hair, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. Fourth image? Vanessa in a garden somewhere, holding pruning shears, dirt on her hands, looking at flowers with the focused attention most people reserve for important work. There were dozens of them, maybe hundreds. A private gallery of moments stolen from the life she lived outside these glass walls. Vulnerable. Real. Human in a way that felt almost transgressive to witness. Ryan's heart hammered against his ribs. This was wrong. This was a violation of exactly the privacy she'd asked him to respect. He needed to close this folder right now, pretend he'd never seen it, finish the recovery and leave. His fingers moved to close the window. Find everything you needed? Ryan's entire body went rigid. Vanessa stood in the doorway, portfolio under one arm, phone in hand. Her expression was neutral, polite, professional, until she glanced at the laptop screen. Then something changed. Not anger, not immediately. Something worse. A kind of careful blankness that felt like watching someone pull armor on in real time. Ryan's voice came out rough. He cleared his throat. The recovery software opened this folder, I was checking to make sure the files were intact. I see. 2 words. Flat. Unreadable. Vanessa crossed the office, set down her portfolio, placed her phone on the desk with deliberate precision. She looked at the screen, at her own image, vulnerable and exposed. Then she looked at Ryan. The silence stretched like wire pulled too tight. How much did you see? Her voice was quiet, too quiet. I just opened the folder. I didn't mean to. How much? Ryan forced himself to hold her gaze. 4 or 5 photos. Then you came in. Vanessa reached past him and closed the laptop. The screen went dark. She stood close enough that Ryan could smell her perfume, something expensive and subtle that probably had a French name. Those are private, she said. I know. I'm sorry. The software flagged the folder as corrupted, and I opened it to verify the recovery. I should have realized. You should have closed it immediately. You're right. I should have. Vanessa stepped back, arms crossed, and Ryan saw her decide something. Make some calculation about him, about this situation, about what happened next. When she spoke again, her voice had changed, still controlled, but underneath it something raw. Do you think I'm pretty? The question landed like a punch. Ryan's mind went completely blank. What? It's a simple question, Ryan. She gestured at the closed laptop. You saw the photos. You saw me without all this. She indicated herself, the perfect clothes, the perfect hair, the perfect professional presentation. So I'm asking, do you think I'm pretty? This was a trap. Had to be. Some kind of test, a HR violation waiting to happen. A moment that would end with him in a conference room trying to explain himself to people who didn't care about explanations. But Vanessa's eyes held something that didn't look like a trap. They looked genuine, uncertain, maybe even a little desperate. Yes, Ryan heard himself say. I think you're beautiful. Her expression flickered. Beautiful. In the photos, though. You looked. Ryan struggled for words that wouldn't make this worse. Happy. Real. Like someone I'd want to know. As opposed to the woman standing in front of you right now. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Vanessa turned away, walked to the windows, looked out at the city. Do you know how exhausting it is, being this person all day, every day, never letting anyone see anything that isn't controlled and perfect and professional? Ryan didn't know how to answer that. This conversation had veered so far outside normal parameters that he felt like he was navigating without instruments. Those photos, Vanessa continued, still facing the windows, are from a life I don't really have anymore. Weekends, vacations, moments when I could be just Vanessa instead of Vanessa Hart, Director of Creative Strategy. She laughed, but it sounded bitter. I keep them on my work computer because my apartment feels too empty to look at them there. Pathetic, right? No, don't lie to make me feel better. I'm not lying. Ryan stood carefully, like sudden movement might shatter whatever fragile thing was happening between them. I have a 7-year-old daughter. I'm raising her alone. Every single day is a performance of being the parent she needs, even when I'm exhausted or scared or have no idea what I'm doing. I understand what it costs to never let anyone see you struggle. Vanessa turned from the window, really looked at him. Not the way she'd looked when he'd entered her office, through him, past him, barely registering his existence, but at him, seeing him. A daughter, she said softly. Mia. She's in 2nd grade, loves science, hates spelling, wants to be a marine biologist even though she's never seen an ocean. You've never taken her to the ocean? Ryan shook his head. Single parent budget. We're still in the making rent every month phase of financial stability. Vanessa studied him with that same sharp attention she'd probably used to dissect creative concepts. You're good at your job. I try to be. I've had my computer worked on before. Other IT people. They fix the technical problem, but they're always in a hurry to leave, like they're afraid of me. She paused. You don't seem afraid. Should I be? Most people are. Ryan considered that. The Ice Queen. The woman who made designers cry with a look. The executive who existed on a different floor in a different world behind frosted glass and expensive minimalism. You asked if I thought you were pretty, he said quietly. People who are actually scary don't ask questions like that. Something in Vanessa's expression cracked, just slightly, just enough. I should fire you for looking at those photos. I know. I should report this to HR and have you walked out of the building. Probably. But I'm not going to. Ryan waited. Do you know why? Vanessa moved closer, and Ryan felt his pulse spike. Because for 3 years, you've been in this building fixing things, solving problems, being reliable and competent, and completely invisible. And in 30 minutes, you saw more of me than anyone I work with has seen in a decade. You could have lied just now, said you barely glanced at the photos, that you didn't notice anything, but you didn't. Lying seemed worse than the truth. The truth is usually worse. Vanessa reached past him, opened the laptop again. The screen illuminated her face with cold light. But sometimes it's the only thing worth anything. She opened the folder again. The photos filled the screen, all those private moments, all that vulnerability carefully documented and hidden. I'm going to ask you something, Vanessa said, and I need you to be honest with me. Okay? If you saw these photos of someone else, not your boss, not someone whose career could affect yours, what would you think? Ryan looked at the images. Really looked. Vanessa on the beach, Vanessa with her book, Vanessa in the garden. A woman alone, documenting moments of peace in a life that apparently didn't have many. I think she was lonely, Ryan said quietly. I think she was trying to remember what it felt like to be herself. Vanessa's breath caught, just barely, just enough for Ryan to hear. Get out, she whispered. Ms. Hart, get out of my office, Ryan, now. He gathered his toolkit, moved toward the door, stopped with his hand on the handle. Your hard drive is failing, he said, keeping his voice professional, giving her the distance she clearly needed. I can patch it temporarily, but you'll need a replacement within the week. I'll have a new one ordered and installed by Friday. All your files will transfer over intact. Vanessa didn't turn from the screen. Thank you. Ryan left. The elevator ride down felt like descending from atmosphere back to earth. By the time he reached floor 4, his hands had stopped shaking. Martin looked up when Ryan dropped into his desk chair. How'd it go with the Ice Queen? Hard drive failure. I'll need to order a replacement. She give you the death stare? Ryan powered up his monitors, pulled up the hardware requisition form. We had a professional conversation about her technical needs. Martin snorted. That's the most boring sentence I've ever heard. You're no fun, Cole. The rest of the day moved like water around stones, routine, predictable, safe. Ryan handled tickets, monitored servers, responded to panicked emails about forgotten passwords. At 5:45 exactly, he shut down his computer, grabbed his jacket, and headed for the elevator. His phone buzzed as he hit the lobby. Text from Mia's after-school program. Mia had a great day, made a volcano in science. See you soon. Ryan smiled, pocketed his phone, pushed through the revolving doors into the Manhattan evening. Traffic was brutal, always was. Ryan sat in his 12-year-old Honda, windows down because the AC had given up last summer, and thought about nothing, deliberately, aggressively. He thought about picking up Mia, helping with homework, making dinner, chicken stir-fry probably. They had vegetables that needed using. He absolutely did not think about Vanessa Hart standing in her perfect office asking if he thought she was pretty. He did not think about the way her voice had cracked when he'd said she looked lonely. He did not think about her face in those photos, genuine and unguarded and completely different from the woman who ran the creative department like a military campaign. By the time Ryan pulled up to Bright Futures After School Care, he'd almost convinced himself the whole interaction had been a strange dream. Mia exploded through the doors like she did every day, backpack bouncing, braids coming loose, face bright with the kind of unfiltered joy only 7-year-olds could manage. Dad, we made a volcano and it actually erupted. Well, it was baking soda and vinegar, but Miss Rebecca said that's how real science starts, and I'm going to be a scientist who studies volcanoes and oceans. Ryan caught her in a hug, breathing in the smell of kid shampoo and playground dust. Volcano oceanographer. That's a new one. It's going to be amazing. Can we make a volcano at home? Maybe this weekend. You always say maybe this weekend. This weekend, I mean it. Mia pulled back, studied his face with the suspicious wisdom of a child who'd learned to read adult evasions. Promise? Promise. The apartment was small, one bedroom for Mia, the couch that folded out for Ryan, a kitchen barely big enough to turn around in. But it was clean, safe, and theirs. Ryan had learned not to want more than that. Wanting more led to disappointment, and he couldn't afford disappointment when he had a daughter counting on him for stability. Dinner was stir-fry, just like he'd planned. Mia talked non-stop about her day, about the volcano, about how her friend Emma had gotten in trouble for putting too much vinegar and making a mess, about the book they were reading in class. Ryan listened, asked questions, made appropriate impressed noises. This was his real life, not frosted glass offices and uncomfortable conversations with executives. This. His daughter at their tiny kitchen table, doing homework while he washed dishes, her voice filling the space with noise that made the apartment feel less empty. Dad? Yeah, sweetheart? Are you okay? Ryan turned from the sink. Mia watched him with those too perceptive eyes, the ones that saw more than he wanted her to. I'm fine. Why? You seem weird. Weird how? Quiet weird. You're always quiet, but this is different quiet. Ryan dried his hands, sat down across from her. Just thinking about work stuff. Nothing important. Is someone being mean to you at work? The question hit harder than it should have. No, baby, nobody's being mean. Because you're really good at your job, and if someone's being mean, they're wrong. Ryan reached across the table, squeezed her hand. Thank you, but I promise, everything's fine. Mia studied him a moment longer, then returned to her math homework. Okay, but if someone is mean, you should tell them I'll beat them up. I'll keep that in mind. That night, after Mia was asleep and the apartment had settled into its usual quiet, Ryan lay on the fold-out couch and stared at the ceiling. Street light filtered through the thin curtains, painting shadows across the water-stained paint above him. He thought about Vanessa's question. Do you think I'm pretty? He thought about his answer. Beautiful. He thought about the look on her face when he'd said she seemed lonely, like he'd reached through all her careful armor and touched something she'd forgotten was there. This was dangerous. Whatever had happened in that office today had crossed lines that should stay solid. Vanessa Hart was his boss's boss's boss. She lived in a world of corner offices and expensive clothes and creative campaigns for clients whose budgets exceeded Ryan's annual salary. He fixed computers and raised his daughter and drove a Honda with broken AC. Their orbits weren't meant to touch, but they had. And Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted, some tectonic plate deep underground that would eventually cause earthquakes neither of them could predict. His phone buzzed on the milk crate that served as a bedside table. Ryan grabbed it, expecting a work email or a reminder about Mia's permission slip for the field trip next week. Instead, he found a message from an unknown number. This is Vanessa Hart. I got your number from HR. We need to talk, not about the computer, about what you saw today. Are you free tomorrow after 6? Ryan stared at the screen until it dimmed, read the message again, a third time. Every reasonable instinct he had screamed that responding was a mistake, that this conversation, whatever it was, would only complicate his life in ways he couldn't afford, that he should delete the message, pretend he'd never seen it, maintain the professional distance that kept single fathers with daughters to support safe and employed. He typed back anyway. I can do 6:30 after I drop my daughter at home. The response came within seconds. There's a coffee shop on 47th and 9th, quieter than anywhere near the office. See you there. Ryan set down the phone, returned to staring at the ceiling. Outside, the city hummed its constant song, traffic and sirens, and the white noise of 8 million people living on top of each other. Somewhere in that city, Vanessa Hart was probably staring at her own ceiling, wondering what the hell she was doing texting her IT guy at 11 p.m. Ryan wondered the same thing, but he knew he'd be at that coffee shop tomorrow anyway. Because in that office today, for just a moment, he'd seen past Vanessa's armor to the person underneath. And she'd seen him, really seen him, in a way nobody had since before his ex-wife had decided that single motherhood wasn't what she'd signed up for, and disappeared into a new life that didn't include their daughter. Sometimes being invisible was safety. Sometimes it was loneliness. Ryan wasn't sure which one he was running from anymore. But tomorrow at 6:30, he'd find out whether Vanessa Hart was running from the same thing. The ceiling didn't have any answers. It never did. Ryan closed his eyes and tried to sleep, knowing that tomorrow would bring complications he couldn't predict and probably shouldn't want, but wanting it anyway. The coffee shop on 47th and 9th was the kind of place that survived on being forgettable. No branded cups, no hipster aesthetic, just worn booths and a counter run by a woman who'd probably been pouring coffee there since before Ryan was born. The fluorescent lights flickered occasionally, casting uneven shadows across linoleum that had seen better decades. Ryan arrived at 6:25, ordered black coffee he didn't want, and chose a booth in the back corner where they'd have some privacy. His hands wrapped around the mug for something to do while he waited, while his brain cataloged all the ways this could go wrong. She could fire him, report him to HR for the photos, claim he'd violated her privacy. He had violated her privacy, technically, even if it was accidental. Or this could be something worse, some kind of test, a way to see if he'd keep his mouth shut about what he'd seen. Corporate politics he didn't understand, playing out in ways that would end with him unemployed. At 6:32, Vanessa walked through the door. She'd changed since work. Jeans, a simple sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail instead of the sleek, professional style she wore at the office. She looked younger like this, more approachable. She spotted Ryan, nodded once, and ordered something at the counter before sliding into the booth across from him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "Thank you for coming," Vanessa said finally. "You said we needed to talk." "We do." She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup, mirroring his posture. "About yesterday. About what happened in my office." Ryan waited. "I shouldn't have asked you that question," Vanessa continued, "about whether you thought I was pretty. It was inappropriate. You were there to fix my computer, not deal with my personal crisis. It didn't feel like you were having a crisis. What did it feel like?" Ryan considered his words carefully. "Like you were testing something. Maybe testing me, maybe testing yourself, I'm not sure which." Vanessa's mouth quirked in something that wasn't quite a smile. "You're more perceptive than most people I work with. Most people you work with are probably too afraid of you to pay attention. And you're not afraid of me." "I didn't say that. But you're here anyway." Ryan took a sip of coffee, buying time. "You asked me to come. I'm not in the habit of ignoring requests from executives." "That's not why you're here." Vanessa leaned forward slightly. "You're here because yesterday, for about 5 minutes, we were honest with each other in a way that neither of us expected, and now we're both trying to figure out what to do with that." She wasn't wrong. Ryan had spent the entire day replaying their conversation, analyzing it from every angle, trying to understand what had actually happened versus what his sleep-deprived brain might have imagined. "Why did you keep those photos on your work computer?" he asked. Vanessa's fingers tightened around her cup. "You already know why." "I want to hear you say it." "Because my apartment is empty, Ryan. Because I go home every night to a space that's beautiful and expensive and completely hollow. Because those photos remind me that I used to be a person who did things besides work. And if I kept them at home, I'd have to face exactly how long it's been since I felt like that person." The honesty in her voice was almost painful to hear. "How long has it been?" Ryan asked quietly. 3 years? Maybe 4. It's hard to pinpoint exactly when work stopped being what I did and started being who I am. She paused. "When did your wife leave?" The question caught Ryan off guard. "How did you know? You said you're raising your daughter alone. Either she died or she left. And you don't have the grief in your voice that comes with death." Ryan stared at his coffee. 3 years ago, Mia was 4. My ex decided that motherhood wasn't fulfilling her potential. She wanted to find herself, whatever that means. Last I heard, she was in California doing yoga instructor training. Does Mia ask about her? Sometimes. Less now than she used to. That must be hard. It's harder on her than on me. I just worry about screwing her up. Single dad, working too much, never enough money for the things she wants. I keep wondering what kind of person she'll become because her mom left and her dad was too busy trying to keep them housed and fed to give her the childhood she deserved. Vanessa was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. "Yesterday, You said you understood what it costs to never let anyone see you struggle. Yeah, I think you're struggling right now. Ryan looked up, met her eyes. So are you. Yes, Vanessa said simply. I am. The admission hung between them, too honest for a coffee shop conversation between a boss and an employee, too real for whatever professional boundaries they were supposed to be maintaining. I need to tell you something, Vanessa said, and I need you to just listen, not interrupt until I'm finished. Can you do that? Ryan nodded. For the past 6 months, I've been thinking about leaving Hartwell. Not for another job. I have headhunters calling me every week with offers. I mean, leaving the industry entirely, walking away from advertising, from creative direction, from all of it. She paused, gathering her thoughts. I'm 43 years old. I've spent 20 years building a career that everyone tells me should make me happy. I make excellent money. I have respect. I have influence. And I hate it. Not the work itself. I'm good at what I do, and there's satisfaction in that. But the person I have to be to do it? The performance, the politics, the constant armor? I'm exhausted. Ryan kept silent, letting her continue. Those photos you saw? They're from a trip I took to North Carolina 4 years ago. A beach house rental, 2 weeks alone, no laptop, no phone calls. I spent the entire time reading, walking on the beach, cooking meals that took hours to make. I talked to strangers in coffee shops. I helped an elderly woman in the house next door with her garden. For 2 weeks, I was just Vanessa. Not Vanessa Hart, Director of Creative Strategy, just a woman on vacation who smiled at people and meant it. Her voice caught slightly. On the last day, I took that selfie you saw. The one with no makeup, messy hair. I looked at myself in the mirror that morning and thought, this is who I actually am. And then I came back to New York and buried that person so deep I forgot she existed. Vanessa stopped, took a breath. When you opened that folder yesterday, when you saw those photos, it was like being exposed, like you'd found evidence of some crime I'd committed against myself. And then you looked at me and said, I seemed lonely, and I realized you were the first person in years to actually see me, not the performance. Me. Ryan waited, making sure she was finished before he spoke. Why are you telling me this? Because I need you to understand something. Vanessa's gaze was steady, unflinching. What happened yesterday wasn't about you seeing private photos. It was about you seeing the truth underneath them. And now I can't unsee the fact that you saw it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Not really. I'm saying that you've become dangerous to me, Ryan Cole. Not because you have information you could use against me, because you know something true about me, and I can't perform for you anymore, and that terrifies me. The confession settled over the table like smoke. Ryan processed it slowly, turning her words over in his mind. So what do you want from me? I don't know. Vanessa laughed, but it sounded painful. I texted you last night because I couldn't stop thinking about our conversation, about how you answered my question honestly when you could have lied, about how you didn't judge me for asking it, and I thought maybe... She trailed off. Maybe what? Maybe you'd understand what it's like to be trapped in a life you built for yourself, to be good at something that's slowly killing you, to want desperately to be seen but being terrified of what happens when someone actually looks. Ryan did understand, more than she probably realized. My daughter asked me last night if someone at work was being mean to me, he said quietly. She could tell something was off, 7 years old, and she's already learned to read my moods because she's had to, because I'm all she has, and if I'm struggling, it affects her entire world. That's a lot of pressure. It's everything. Every decision I make, every risk I don't take, every opportunity I turn down, it's all filtered through, how does this affect Mia? And most days, that's fine. Great even. Being her dad is the best thing I've ever done, but sometimes you want to be just Ryan, Vanessa finished. Yeah. They sat in silence, two people who'd accidentally stumbled into each other's truth. I'm going to do something, Vanessa said suddenly, and I need you to tell me if I'm crossing a line. Okay? Starting Monday, I'm going to assign you to a project, a big one. We're pitching a campaign to a tech company, major international client, worth millions to Hartwell if we land it. The presentation is in 3 weeks, and our entire system infrastructure needs to be bulletproof. No failures, no crashes, no technical difficulties during the pitch. Ryan frowned. That's not crossing a line. That's just work. I haven't finished. I'm going to make you the lead on it. Not Martin, not anyone else in IT. You. Which means you'll be working directly with me and my team. Long hours, high pressure, constant collaboration. Understanding dawned slowly. You're putting me in a position where we'll have to interact constantly. Yes. Why? Vanessa met his eyes. Because I need to know if what happened yesterday was real or just a moment of weakness on my part. Because I can't stop thinking about how you looked at those photos and saw someone worth knowing instead of someone pathetic. And because if I'm going to blow up my carefully controlled life, I want to know it's for a reason that matters. I could lose my job if this goes wrong. I could lose mine too. You're a director. I fix computers. Those are not equivalent risks. No, Vanessa agreed. They're not. Which is why I'm giving you an out right now. You can finish your coffee, go home to your daughter, and Monday morning we'll pretend this conversation never happened. I'll assign the project to Martin, and we'll go back to existing on different floors like we have for 3 years. Ryan should take the out. He knew that. This whole situation had red flags planted like landmines. Office romance, power dynamics, complicated personal histories. Every rational part of his brain screamed that getting involved with Vanessa Hart was a catastrophically bad idea. But he thought about her standing in her office, asking if he thought she was pretty, with a vulnerability that had nothing to do with vanity. He thought about those photos of a woman who'd forgotten how to be herself. He thought about what she'd just said, that he'd become dangerous to her because she couldn't perform anymore. He understood that feeling, the exhaustion of maintaining a facade, the desperate hope that someone might see through it and not turn away. What happens if the project goes well? Ryan asked. I don't know. What happens if it goes badly? I don't know that either.
Those aren't great odds.
Vanessa's smile was small, sad.
No, they're not.
Ryan finished his coffee, set down the empty mug, made a decision that would change everything. I'll do it. Something shifted in Vanessa's expression, relief maybe, or fear, or both tangled together. You're sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Why? Ryan considered the question. Why was he agreeing to this? It wasn't attraction, or at least not only that. It wasn't career advancement. This kind of visibility could backfire spectacularly. It was something harder to name, something about recognizing another person's loneliness and realizing it matched his own. Because yesterday, you asked me if I thought you were pretty, he said finally. And the real question underneath that was, do you see me? And I did. I do. And maybe that's enough reason to take a stupid risk. Vanessa's eyes glistened, just slightly, just enough for Ryan to notice before she blinked it away. Thank you, she whispered. They left the coffee shop separately, Vanessa first, then Ryan 5 minutes later. Professional distance, plausible deniability, all the careful steps of people who knew they were walking toward something they shouldn't want. The weekend passed in the usual rhythms. Ryan took Mia to the park, helped her build the promised volcano in the kitchen sink, did laundry while she watched cartoons. Normal life. Safe life. The life he'd built carefully over 3 years to give his daughter stability. But underneath it, something had shifted. Some awareness that Monday would bring changes he couldn't predict. Sunday night, after Mia was asleep, Ryan's phone buzzed with an email. Subject line: Project Atlas. Team assignment. He opened it, scanned the contents. Official notification that he'd been assigned as technical lead for the Atlas campaign pitch. 3-week timeline. Direct report to Vanessa Hart. Expected work schedule, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., with potential for additional hours as needed. There was a second email underneath. From Vanessa. No subject line. I know the hours are difficult with your daughter. If you need flexibility for pickup or emergencies, we'll make it work. This project matters, but so does Mia. We'll figure it out. Ryan stared at the message for a long time. No executive he'd ever worked for had acknowledged that he had a life outside the office, let alone offered flexibility for it. The fact that Vanessa had thought to include this, had understood without him saying anything that the extended hours would complicate his carefully balanced schedule. It meant she'd been thinking about him, about his actual life, not just his utility as an employee. He typed back, Thank you. I'll make it work. Her response came within minutes. We both will. Monday morning arrived with the particular tension of new beginnings. Ryan dropped Mia at school, endured the usual traffic, and rode the elevator to floor 4 with his heart beating slightly too fast. Martin was already at his desk, looking stunned. Did you see the email? Martin demanded. Your lead on the Atlas project? How did that happen? Vanessa Hart requested me specifically. Why? She didn't say. Martin's eyes narrowed with suspicion. You sure nothing happened when you fixed her computer? I fixed her computer. That's what happened. Man, I've been here 5 years and I've never even spoken to her directly. You get one ticket to her office and suddenly you're running a major campaign project? Ryan powered up his monitors. Guess she was impressed with my professionalism. Your professionalism, right. Martin didn't sound convinced, but he let it drop. Well, good luck. From what I hear, she's brutal on deadlines. You're going to be living here for the next 3 weeks. At 8:30, Ryan received a calendar invitation for a 9 a.m. meeting on floor 12, Project Atlas Kickoff, Conference Room B. He took the elevator up, carrying a notebook and the laptop he'd prepared over the weekend with diagnostic tools and system monitoring software. The creative floor buzzed with Monday morning energy, people clutching coffee, discussing weekend plans, the ambient noise of a department fully caffeinated and operational. Conference Room B had glass walls, a long table, and Vanessa Hart standing at the head of it reviewing presentation slides. She looked up when Ryan entered. Ryan? Good. You're early. Her voice was professional, controlled, exactly the tone she'd used before their coffee shop conversation, but her eyes held something different, recognition, acknowledgement of shared truth. Traffic was light, Ryan said, matching her professional tone. Lucky you. Take a seat anywhere. The rest of the team should be here in a few minutes. Ryan chose a chair halfway down the table, opened his laptop, and tried to look like someone who belonged in creative department meetings. Over the next 5 minutes, the room filled with people. Copywriters, designers, account managers, all carrying the casual confidence of those who worked on floor 12 regularly. Vanessa started the meeting exactly at 9. Thank you all for being here. As you know, we're pitching to Stratton Technologies in 3 weeks. They're looking for a complete brand refresh, new visual identity, new messaging platform, new digital strategy. If we land this account, it's worth $8 million annually. She clicked to the next slide, which means we cannot afford technical failures. No crashed computers during presentations, no lost files, no system errors that make us look incompetent. Her gaze swept the room, landed on Ryan. That's where Ryan Cole comes in. He's our technical lead for this project. Every file, every presentation, every piece of technology we use, Ryan ensures it works perfectly. He's also your resource for any technical issues that come up during development. If your computer hiccups, you talk to Ryan. If you need specialized software, you talk to Ryan. If you have concerns about system capacity or file security, you talk to Ryan. One of the designers raised her hand. No offense, but isn't this overkill? It handles our stuff already. ET handles routine maintenance, Vanessa corrected. This isn't routine. This is the biggest pitch we've done this year, and I want someone dedicated to making sure technology isn't the reason we fail. Ryan is that someone. Questions? Silence. Good. Ryan, tell us what you need from the team. Ryan stood, feeling multiple sets of eyes assess him with varying degrees of curiosity and skepticism. I need to know your workflows, what software you're using, what files you're sharing, how you're collaborating. I'll be setting up a secure project server for all Atlas-related materials, with automatic backups every hour. I'll also be running daily system checks on all computers involved in the project. Daily checks? The same designer looked annoyed. That seems excessive. Would you rather your computer crash the day before the pitch? Ryan kept his tone even, professional. Because I've seen it happen. Hardware fails, software corrupts, drives die. Daily monitoring means I catch problems before they become disasters. Vanessa cut in smoothly. Ryan's procedures are non-negotiable. This is too important to take chances. Anything else? Ryan shook his head and sat down. The meeting continued for another hour, covering campaign strategy, timeline milestones, and team responsibilities. Ryan took notes, asked clarifying questions about technical requirements, and tried not to think about the fact that he'd be spending the next 3 weeks working this closely with Vanessa. When the meeting ended, people filed out in clusters, discussing concepts and deadlines. Ryan packed up his laptop, preparing to leave. "Ryan, a moment." Vanessa stood by the windows, arms crossed, waiting until the room emptied. When they were alone, her posture relaxed slightly. "That went well," she said. "Your team doesn't seem thrilled about daily system checks." "They'll adjust. I'm more concerned about your schedule. 7 p.m. end time means you'd be late picking up your daughter. I talked to her after school program. They can keep her until 7:30 if needed. It costs extra, but it's manageable." Vanessa frowned. "How much extra?" "That's not your concern." "Ryan, it's not," he repeated firmly. "This is my decision. I knew what the hours were when I agreed. But you're taking on financial burden because I asked you to do this project. You offered me an opportunity. I'm choosing to take it. Those are different things." Vanessa studied him for a long moment. "You're more stubborn than I expected. You're more concerned about my personal life than most bosses would be." "Maybe I'm not most bosses." "No," Ryan agreed quietly. "You're not." The moment stretched between them, charged with things neither of them could say in a conference room with glass walls where anyone walking by could see them. Vanessa broke it first. "I need you to understand something. For the next 3 weeks, I'm going to push you, hard. Not because I'm testing you or punishing you, but because this project actually matters. Stratton Technologies is the kind of client that defines careers. If we land this account, it changes everything for Hartwell. And I need to know that our technical foundation is solid." "I understand." "Do you? Because from the outside, it's going to look like I'm overworking you, demanding too much. People might think I'm being unreasonable." "Let them think that." "Ryan, I can handle pressure, Vanessa. I've been handling it alone for 3 years. Whatever you throw at me with this project, it's not harder than raising a daughter on a single income while working full-time. I'll be fine." Something in her expression softened. "You always say that you'll be fine." "Because I will be." "What if you're not?" Ryan met her eyes steadily. "Then I'll figure it out. Same as I always do." Vanessa nodded slowly, accepting this. "Okay, but if the hours become unmanageable, you tell me. I mean it. Mia comes first. She always does." "Good." Vanessa turned back to her presentation materials, gathering files. "The design team is working on initial concepts this week. I'll need you to review their file management setup, make sure everything's backed up properly. Also, we're bringing in an external vendor for video production. I'll need you to coordinate with them on technical specs. Send me their contact information and I'll handle it." "I will. Also," she hesitated. "My computer, the replacement hard drive you mentioned. When is that happening?" "Friday. I'll need about 2 hours to transfer everything and test the new system. Schedule it for after 5. I have meetings all day." "After 5 means I'll miss pickup." Vanessa's jaw tightened. "Then we'll do it another time." "No, we'll do it Friday. I can have my neighbor pick up Mia. It's fine." "Ryan, it's fine," he repeated. "You're right that your computer can't fail during this project. Friday works." They looked at each other across the conference table, and Ryan saw her make some decision. Accept his boundaries. Trust that he knew his own limits. "Friday then," she agreed. "After 5." Ryan left the conference room feeling like he'd just navigated a minefield blindfolded. Professional conversation about project logistics, but underneath it all, the awareness of everything they weren't saying. The coffee shop confession, the mutual recognition of loneliness, the risk they were both taking by choosing to work this closely together. The week accelerated. Ryan spent his days monitoring systems, setting up the secure project server, coordinating with the design team on file protocols. He learned their workflows, identified potential failure points, implemented redundancies. The work was demanding but straightforward, technical problems with technical solutions. The complicated part was Vanessa. They had to meet daily. Project updates, technical consultations, timeline adjustments. Every interaction was professional, appropriate, Exactly what anyone watching would expect between a department director and her technical lead. But there were moments, brief, easily missed, where the performance cracked. Wednesday afternoon, reviewing backup protocols in her office. Vanessa's hand brushed his while reaching for a document, and they both froze for a fraction of a second before continuing like nothing had happened. Thursday morning, emergency meeting about a crash design file. Ryan fixed it in 10 minutes, and when he looked up, Vanessa was watching him with an expression that had nothing to do with gratitude for technical competence and everything to do with seeing him. Friday evening, the hard drive replacement. The office had emptied out by 5:30, leaving floor 12 quiet except for the hum of equipment. Ryan worked methodically, transferring files, installing the new drive, running diagnostics. Vanessa stayed, working on campaign concepts at her desk, occasionally asking questions about timeline or backup security. At 6:45, Ryan finished. "All set," he said, straightening from where he'd been crouched beside her desk managing cables. "New drive is installed. All files transferred successfully. Systems running clean. You shouldn't have any more issues." Vanessa saved her work, tested a few programs. "It's faster." "New hardware usually is. Plus, I cleaned up some bloatware that was slowing you down." "Thank you." She stood, stretched, looked out at Manhattan in its evening glow. "You should go. Your daughter's waiting." "My neighbor's daughter picked her up. They're having dinner together. I have time." "Ryan, I have time," he repeated. Vanessa turned from the window. They were alone on an empty floor, no cameras in the offices, no witnesses to whatever happened next. The risk of it hung in the air between them. "We should talk about boundaries," Vanessa said quietly. "Probably. About what's appropriate given our professional relationship." "Yeah. About how working this closely together for 3 weeks could complicate things in ways neither of us intended." Ryan nodded. "All true. So why aren't we talking about those things?" "Because we both know the boundaries already. We're just trying to decide whether to respect them." Vanessa's laugh was soft, almost sad. "When did you get so good at reading people?" "Single parent. You learn to read moods fast when a 7-year-old's emotional stability depends on it." "That's a lot of pressure." "Everything about my life is pressure. This," he gestured between them. "Whatever this is, it's actually the least complicated thing I'm dealing with." "How can you say that? I'm your boss. I have power over your employment, your career, your financial security." "If this goes wrong, you lose everything." "If this goes wrong, I find another job. I've done it before. But Vanessa, if I don't take this risk, if I walk away from whatever's happening between us because I'm too afraid of the consequences, I think I'll regret that more than any job loss." She stared at him. "You can't mean that." "Why not?" "Because you have a daughter who depends on you, because you can't afford to be reckless." "I'm not being reckless, I'm being honest." Ryan moved closer, not touching, just closing the distance between them. "You said on Monday that you needed to know if what happened last week was real. I'm telling you it was. Is. Whatever we're doing right now, it's real, and I think you feel it too." Vanessa's breath caught. "Ryan, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me this is just projection, or loneliness, or some weird crisis we're both having. Tell me to leave and we'll pretend this conversation never happened." "I can't." "Why not?" "Because you're right. It is real, and that terrifies me." They stood in her office as evening light faded to dusk, two people who'd accidentally stumbled past professional boundaries into something neither of them had names for yet. "What do we do?" Vanessa asked softly. "I don't know, but I think we figure it out together." She nodded slowly. "The project. We focus on the project. 3 weeks, we do excellent work, we land the Stratton account, and when it's over, when there's no more daily meetings and deadline pressure, we figure out what this is." "Okay, but Ryan, if at any point this becomes too much, if I'm asking more than you can give, you tell me. Promise me." "I promise. Same goes for you." "Deal." Ryan gathered his tools, packed up his laptop. At the door, he paused. "Vanessa?" "Yeah?" "For what it's worth, I think you made the right choice. Assigning me to this project." "Why?" "Because now we both know it wasn't just a moment in time. It's something real, And whatever happens next, at least we'll know the truth. He left before she could respond, before the moment could become more than either of them was ready to handle. The elevator ride down felt like returning to Earth from orbit. By the time Ryan reached his car, his hands had stopped shaking. He texted his neighbor, confirmed Mia was fine, and drove through evening traffic thinking about everything that had just changed and everything that was about to. 3 weeks. That's all they had to keep it together. 3 weeks of professional collaboration, careful boundaries, and pretending that working this closely didn't make them both aware of exactly what they were trying not to want. Ryan made it home by 8. His neighbor brought Mia back, the two girls chattering about their dinner and some game they'd invented. Ryan thanked her, got Mia ready for bed, read her the required 2 chapters of her current book about dolphins. "Dad?" Mia asked sleepily. "Yeah, baby?" "You seem different lately." "Different how?" "Less tired. You smile more." Ryan kissed her forehead. "Work's been interesting. In a good way." "That's good. You should be happy at work. You're there a lot." "I'm sorry about that." "It's okay, as long as you're happy." She fell asleep within minutes, leaving Ryan alone with the truth of what his daughter had noticed. He was different. Vanessa had cracked something open in him, some awareness of possibility, some hope that his life could be more than just survival and responsibility. It was dangerous, reckless, probably stupid, but for the first time in 3 years, Ryan felt like he was building towards something instead of just holding things together. Whatever happened next, he'd chosen it deliberately, and that choice felt like freedom. That freedom lasted exactly 4 days. Monday of week 2 started with an emergency. Ryan arrived at 7:45 to find 3 panicked voicemails from the design team. Their shared project drive had corrupted overnight, taking with it 2 weeks of Atlas campaign concepts. Everything from initial sketches to refined mock-ups, gone. Ryan didn't panic. Panic was a luxury for people who had the option. He went straight to the server room, pulled up the backup logs, and started the recovery process. By 8:30, he'd restored everything from the previous night's automatic backup. The design team lost maybe 2 hours of work. Annoying, but not catastrophic. Vanessa found him in the server room at 9, still running diagnostics to figure out what had caused the corruption. "I heard what happened," she said from the doorway. "How bad is it?" "Fixed. Everything's restored from backup." "How much did we lose?" 2 hours, maybe less. The automatic backup I set up ran at midnight, so anything they saved before then is intact. Vanessa leaned against the doorframe, and Ryan saw genuine relief cross her face. "You just saved this entire project." "I did my job." "Ryan, if we'd lost 2 weeks of design work 4 days before the preliminary presentation to Stratton's team, we'd be finished. You didn't just do your job, you saved us." Ryan stood, wiping dust from his hands. The server room was always dusty, no matter how often facilities cleaned it. "That's why you wanted dedicated technical support. This is exactly the kind of disaster I'm here to prevent." "Do you know what caused it?" "Not yet. Could be hardware failure, could be corrupted software, could be user error. I'll know more after I finish the diagnostics." Vanessa moved into the room, closer to where Ryan stood, surrounded by blinking server lights and the low hum of cooling fans. "The team's shaken. Some of them are worried it'll happen again." "It won't. I'm implementing additional safeguards today. Multiple backup locations, hourly snapshots instead of nightly redundant systems. If something fails, we'll have 6 different ways to recover." "That sounds expensive." "It is, but less expensive than losing the Stratton account." She smiled at that, small and brief. "You're starting to think like a director." "I'm thinking like someone who understands consequences. There's a difference." They stood in the humming quiet of the server room, close enough that Ryan could smell her perfume, that same expensive scent from her office, subtle and present. "I have a confession," Vanessa said quietly. "When you didn't answer your phone this morning, when I saw those voicemails from the design team, my first thought wasn't about the project. It was about whether something had happened to you." Ryan's chest tightened. "I'm fine, just got here early to handle it before anyone panicked." I know that now, but for about 10 minutes, I thought maybe you'd decided this was too much. The hours, the pressure, the risk of working this closely with me. I thought maybe you'd walked away. I told you I wouldn't. People say a lot of things, Ryan. Following through is different. He understood what she was really saying, that she'd been left before. That promises didn't mean much when they came without proof, that trusting him was its own kind of risk. I'm not going anywhere, Ryan said. Not for 3 weeks, not after. Whatever this is between us, I'm in it. You need to believe that. Vanessa's eyes searched his face. Why? Why are you so sure? Because I've spent 3 years being alone. Functionally alone, even when Mia's with me. Because being her father means I can't let her see me struggle. Can't let her know when I'm scared or exhausted or wondering if I'm screwing up her entire childhood. You're the first person in 3 years who sees me, actually sees me, and doesn't look away. That's not something I walk away from. She moved closer, close enough that Ryan could see the fine lines at the corners of her eyes, the place where her makeup didn't quite cover the evidence of too many late nights. We're going to complicate everything, Vanessa whispered. I know. This could end badly. Probably will. So why does it feel like the smartest thing I've done in years? Ryan didn't have an answer for that. Or maybe he did, but it required honesty that scared him. That despite every reasonable objection, despite the power dynamics and the professional risk and the complications neither of them needed, this thing between them felt inevitable. Like they'd been moving toward each other for years without knowing it. Vanessa's phone buzzed. She checked it, sighed. I have a meeting in 5 minutes, but Ryan, thank you. For fixing this, for being here, for all of it. Just doing my job, he repeated. We both know it's more than that. She left before he could respond, heels clicking against tile as she disappeared down the hallway. Ryan returned to his diagnostics, trying to focus on corrupted data and system logs instead of the way Vanessa had looked at him in the server room like he was something precious. The preliminary presentation to Stratton Technologies was scheduled for Thursday at 2 p.m. Hartwell's conference room had been transformed into a war room. Mood boards on every wall, prototypes on the tables, presentation materials stacked in careful piles. The energy felt electric, nervous, the kind of collective anxiety that preceded important moments. Ryan had spent Tuesday and Wednesday stress testing every system they'd use. Projector, laptops, backup laptops, network connection, backup network connection. The presentation files themselves loaded on 3 separate devices. He'd run through the entire tech setup a dozen times, accounting for every possible failure point. Wednesday night, he stayed until 9, running one final check. The office had emptied hours ago. Even the creative team had gone home, trusting that Ryan had everything handled. He was alone on floor 12 when Vanessa appeared in the conference room doorway. You're still here, she said. Final run-through. Want to make sure nothing breaks tomorrow. She walked into the room, looked at the presentation materials spread across every surface. The team's good. The concepts are strong. If we lose Stratton, it won't be because of the creative work. You're worried anyway. Always. Vanessa picked up one of the mood boards, studied it with the focused attention she probably gave everything. Stratton's CEO is notoriously difficult. He's killed pitches for the smallest reasons. Wrong font choice, colors he didn't like, presenters who couldn't answer technical questions fast enough. Sounds like a nightmare client. He is, but he's also worth $8 million annually, and Hartwell needs this account. Our growth has been flat for 2 years. If we don't land something major soon, there'll be layoffs. Ryan looked up from the laptop he'd been testing. You didn't mention that before. Didn't seem relevant. You were already committed to the project. It's relevant to everyone who works here, Vanessa. People deserve to know their jobs are at risk. And tell them what? Work harder because if we don't land this account, some of you will be unemployed by summer? That's not motivation. That's terror. It's honesty. Vanessa set down the mood board, turned to face him directly. You think I should have told the team? I think people make better decisions when they have complete information. Even when that information would paralyze them? Ryan considered that. You're protecting them. I'm managing them. There's a difference. Is there? The question hung between them, heavier than Ryan had intended. Vanessa's expression shifted, something defensive rising and then deliberately suppressed. You think I'm being manipulative, she said quietly. I think you're carrying information alone because you don't trust anyone else to handle it properly. which means you're doing exactly what I do with Mia, protecting someone from reality because you think you're the only one strong enough to deal with it. Vanessa stared at him. That's not the same thing, isn't it? You make decisions for your team without giving them all the facts because you've decided they can't handle the pressure. I make decisions for my daughter without explaining all the financial stress because I've decided she's too young to carry that weight. We're both doing the same thing, controlling information to protect people we care about. I don't care about my team the way you care about your daughter. Don't you? You've been working 70-hour weeks to make sure this pitch is perfect. You assigned me to this project specifically because you couldn't risk technical failure. You're carrying the weight of potential layoffs alone instead of sharing it. That sounds like caring to me. Vanessa moved to the windows, looked out at the city in its nighttime glow. When I was 26, I worked for a creative director who was brilliant and terrible in equal measure. He taught me everything about campaign strategy, about reading clients, about building concepts that actually moved markets. But he also taught me that caring too much about your team makes you weak, that emotional attachment clouds judgment, that the best leaders maintain distance. Do you believe that? I did. For years, I built my entire career on that principle. Stay detached, stay objective, make decisions based on strategy rather than sentiment. She paused. And then I woke up one day at 43, alone in an expensive apartment, looking at photos of a woman I barely recognized, wondering when I'd stopped being human and started being a position. Ryan stood, moved to where Vanessa stood by the windows. You're not just a position. How would you know? You've known me for 2 weeks. I know you offered me schedule flexibility for my daughter before we'd even started the project. I know you noticed when I was struggling with the extended hours and adjusted meetings to make it easier. I know you stayed late tonight, even though the presentation's ready because you wanted to make sure I wasn't here alone dealing with technical problems. Vanessa turned to face him, and in the dim conference room light, she looked younger, vulnerable. The armor she wore during business hours stripped away by exhaustion and honesty. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. Whatever this is between us. I don't know the rules. Neither do I. That doesn't scare you. It terrifies me, but I'm doing it anyway. She reached out, hesitated, then placed her hand over his where it rested on the window ledge. The touch was brief, barely a moment, but it felt monumental. Tomorrow's presentation, Vanessa said, her voice steadier now. I need you there. Not just for technical support. I need you there. I'll be there. Promise me if something goes wrong, if the technology fails despite all your preparation, you won't blame yourself. Can't promise that. Ryan, I can promise that if something fails, I'll fix it. Fast enough that Stratton's CEO won't have time to use it as an excuse. That good enough? Vanessa smiled, small and real. Yeah, that's good enough. They stood together in the quiet conference room, hands almost touching, both aware they were crossing lines that would be easier to ignore. But neither of them stepped back. Neither of them chose safety over this fragile, complicated thing they were building. Ryan left at 9:30, drove home through light traffic, and found Mia already asleep. His neighbor had stayed late to help. He paid her the extra sitting fee he couldn't really afford and told himself it was worth it. All of this was worth it. Thursday arrived with the weight of consequence. Ryan dressed more carefully than usual. Better shirt, the tie he saved for rare occasions when looking professional mattered. He got Mia to school early, made it to the office by 7:30, and spent the next 6 hours making absolutely certain that every technical element was perfect. The Stratton Technologies team arrived at 1:45. 4 people, the CEO, Marcus Stratton, their CMO, their head of digital strategy, and someone who looked like a lawyer but might have been an accountant. They had the collective energy of people who'd seen 1,000 pitches and been impressed by approximately none of them. Vanessa greeted them with the smooth professionalism of someone who'd done this hundreds of times, confident, warm, just strategic enough to feel authentic. The creative team presented their concepts with practiced polish, campaign narratives, visual identities, digital strategies that balanced innovation with market reality. Ryan stayed in the back corner, laptop open, monitoring every system in real time. Projector running smooth, network connection stable, backup devices ready if needed. He was invisible, exactly as he should be. Technical support didn't draw attention unless something broke. The presentation moved through its carefully structured beats: initial concept, target demographic analysis, competitive positioning, implementation timeline. The Stratton team asked sharp questions, and Vanessa's team answered sharply. Everything was working. Then 40 minutes in, Marcus Stratton leaned forward. "This is impressive work, genuinely impressive, but I have concerns about execution. You're proposing a campaign that requires flawless technical integration across multiple platforms. How do I know Hartwell has the infrastructure to actually deliver this?" Vanessa didn't hesitate. "We've invested significantly in our technical capabilities. Our systems are robust, our backup protocols are comprehensive, and we have dedicated technical leadership ensuring nothing fails." "Technical leadership," Stratton repeated. "You mean IT support?" "I mean Ryan Cole, our technical lead for this project. Ryan's been managing every aspect of our infrastructure for the Atlas campaign. He's the reason we can guarantee execution quality." Stratton's gaze swept the room, found Ryan in the back corner. "You, IT guy, come here." Ryan's pulse spiked. He closed his laptop, walked to the front of the room, very aware that everyone was watching him. This wasn't part of the plan. He was supposed to be invisible. "Tell me about your infrastructure," Stratton said. "I want details. What systems are you running? What redundancies do you have in place? How do you handle failure scenarios?" Ryan glanced at Vanessa. She gave him the smallest nod. "Your floor." So Ryan told him. He explained the backup architecture, the redundant servers, the automated monitoring systems that caught problems before they became critical. He walked Stratton through failure scenarios and recovery protocols. He answered technical questions with the kind of precision that came from actually understanding the systems rather than just reading about them. Stratton listened, asked follow-up questions, pushed on details. Ryan answered everything clearly, confidently, aware that this had become a test, not of the creative work, that had already passed. This was a test of whether Hartwell could actually execute what they'd promised. After 10 minutes that felt like an hour, Stratton leaned back in his chair. "Impressive. Most agencies bring in technical consultants for pitches, rent expertise for the day. You've clearly invested in actual infrastructure." He looked at Vanessa. "This is your doing?" "Ryan's doing. I just had the sense to give him the authority and resources to do it properly." "Smart." Stratton stood, signaling the meeting was ending. "We're talking to 2 other agencies this week. You'll hear from us by Monday." The Stratton team left. The conference room exhaled collectively. "That was insane," one of the designers said. "Did he just grill our IT guy for 10 minutes? "He was testing us," Vanessa said calmly, "seeing if we could handle pressure, if our technical claims were real or just presentation polish. Ryan handled it perfectly." The creative team started breaking down the presentation materials, discussing what went well, analyzing Stratton's reactions. Ryan moved back to his corner, reopening his laptop, trying to process what had just happened. Vanessa appeared beside him. "Walk with me." They left the conference room, walked the length of floor 12 to her office. Inside, Vanessa closed the door and turned to face him. "You were brilliant," she said. "I just answered his questions. You did more than that. You made Hartwell look competent and prepared. You made me look smart for trusting you with this project." She paused. "You made him believe we could deliver what we promised. That's not nothing, Ryan." "Think we got it?" "I think we have a real chance. Better than we would have without you there." Vanessa moved to her desk, sat on the edge of it in a way that made her look less like an executive and more like a person. "Thank you. You keep thanking me for doing my job. Because your job just expanded way beyond fixing computers, and you handled it like you'd been doing executive presentations your entire career." Ryan shook his head. "I was terrified." "Didn't show." "Good. Because internally I was panicking that I'd say something wrong and cost you the account." Vanessa smiled. "You know what I noticed? When Stratton was grilling you, you looked at me once. Just once. Like you were checking whether I trusted you to handle it." "Did you?" "Completely. That's why I nodded. That's why I let you take over that part of the presentation without interference." They looked at each other across her office, and Ryan felt the shift happening between them. Something deepening, moving past professional collaboration into territory neither of them had mapped yet. If we land this account, Vanessa said quietly, a lot of things change. The layoff risk goes away. Hartwell's financial stability improves. My position gets significantly more secure. That's good. It also means we'll have proven we work well together, which means there might be more projects, more collaboration, more time working this closely. Ryan understood what she was really asking, and you're wondering if that's what I want. I'm wondering if you've thought about what happens after these 3 weeks end. Whether this thing between us has a future, or if it's just intensity and proximity creating something that won't survive outside controlled circumstances. It was a fair question, one Ryan had been avoiding asking himself because the answer complicated everything. I don't know, he admitted. I know that working with you these past 2 weeks has felt different than anything else in my life. I know that I think about you when I should be thinking about system diagnostics. I know that when you look at me like you're doing right now, I forget all the reasons this is a bad idea. Those aren't reasons to pursue something. No, but they're reasons to want to, and right now that's all I've got. Vanessa stood, moved closer, until they were separated by less than a foot of space that felt charged with possibility and risk. We have 1 more week, she said. 1 more week of this project of working together, of pretending we're just colleagues collaborating on a campaign. After that, we decide. Together. What this is, and whether it's worth the risk. Okay. But Ryan, I need you to really think about it, because if we do this, if we actually pursue whatever this is, there are consequences. HR implications, power dynamic concerns, people who'll say I'm taking advantage of you or you're using me for career advancement. It gets complicated fast. Everything worthwhile is complicated. That's not true. Name something valuable that's simple. Vanessa considered. I can't. Exactly. Ryan knew he should step back, create distance, maintain the professional boundaries they'd already strained. But he didn't. 1 more week. Then we figure it out. Her phone buzzed with an incoming call. Vanessa checked it, frowned. I have to take this. But Ryan, we're not done with this conversation. I know. He left her office, rode the elevator down to floor 4, and tried to return to normal work. But normal felt impossible now. He just spent 10 minutes under scrutiny from a CEO who could make or break careers, had performed under pressure in ways he'd never imagined needing to, and had then had a conversation with Vanessa that came dangerously close to acknowledging they were moving towards something neither of them fully understood yet. Martin looked up when Ryan dropped into his desk chair. Dude, you okay? You look stressed. Long meeting. With Vanessa Hart? Yeah, those'll do it. How'd the Stratton pitch go? Good, I think. We'll know Monday. Cool. Hey, you want to grab lunch? There's a new taco place that opened on 48 that's supposed to be decent. Ryan checked his phone. 3:30. Mia would be out of school in an hour. Can't. Need to catch up on tickets before I leave. You're always catching up on tickets, man. When's the last time you actually took a break? Never, Ryan thought. Breaks were a luxury for people who had margin in their lives. But he just said, I'm fine, Martin. Thanks, though. The rest of the afternoon passed in routine maintenance tasks that felt almost meditative after the intensity of the presentation. Password resets, network troubleshooting, a printer that decided to stop communicating with the accounting department's computers for reasons that made no technical sense. Normal problems with normal solutions. Ryan left at 5:45 exactly, picked up Mia, and drove home through rush hour traffic while she told him about the frog life cycle they were studying in science. Did you know tadpoles breathe through gills? Mia asked. Like fish, but then they grow lungs and can breathe air. Isn't that weird? Pretty weird. Miss Anderson says it's called metamorphosis, when something changes into something completely different. Ryan thought about that. About transformation, about becoming something new while still being fundamentally yourself. About whether people could really change, or if they just became more visible versions of who they'd always been. What are you thinking about, Dad? Just work stuff. Was work good today? Yeah, baby, work was good. That night, after Mia was asleep, Ryan's phone buzzed with a text. Vanessa. Stratton's team just called. They want to schedule a follow-up meeting next Wednesday. This is a good sign. Thank you for today. Ryan typed back. Happy to help. What's the follow-up about? Implementation details, timeline, team structure. They're serious about this. That's great. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally. Are you okay? You left pretty quickly after our conversation. Ryan stared at the message. Was he okay? He'd spent the day performing under pressure, navigating territory he had no training for, and having conversations with his boss that walked right up to the edge of inappropriate. By any reasonable measure, he should be stressed, worried, questioning every choice that had led him here. But he wasn't. He felt alive in a way he hadn't in years. I'm good, he typed. Just processing everything. Today was a lot. It was, but you handled it perfectly. Didn't feel perfect. It never does from the inside. Ryan smiled at that. Wise words. I have my moments. Get some sleep, Ryan. Next week's going to be intense. Aren't they all? Fair point. Good night. Good night, Vanessa. He set down his phone and lay back on the fold-out couch, listening to the city's night sounds filter through thin windows. One more week. 7 days of working closely with Vanessa, of managing the growing awareness between them, of pretending that professional boundaries could contain whatever they were building, and then they'd decide, together, whether this thing between them was real enough to risk everything for. Ryan thought about Mia's science lesson, metamorphosis, when something changes into something completely different while still being fundamentally itself. Maybe that's what was happening to him. Not becoming someone new, but finally becoming visible as who he'd always been. A father, yes. An IT engineer, absolutely. But also a man capable of wanting something beyond survival. Capable of taking risks that weren't about Mia's stability, but about his own possibility. The transformation wasn't complete yet. He was still in that in-between space. Not who he'd been, not yet who he might become. But for the first time in years, Ryan felt like the change was his choice. Like he was actively building towards something instead of just reacting to circumstances. Whatever happened next week, whatever he and Vanessa decided together, Ryan knew one thing for certain. He wasn't invisible anymore. Not to her. Not to himself. And that alone was worth every risk he'd taken to get here. The weekend felt like borrowed time. Ryan took Mia to the Museum of Natural History on Saturday, watched her press her face against the glass of the ocean exhibits, her eyes wide with wonder at creatures that lived in depths humans barely understood. She talked nonstop about bioluminescence and deep-sea pressure, about how some fish could survive in darkness so complete it made midnight seem bright. They adapt, Mia explained with the confident authority of a 7-year-old who'd just learned something fascinating. Their bodies change so they can live where nothing else can. Isn't that cool? Very cool, Ryan agreed, thinking about adaptation, about survival, about what it costs to live in depths that weren't meant for you. Sunday he did laundry, helped Mia with a book report, made spaghetti for dinner. Normal things, safe things, the kind of routine that had defined his life for 3 years. But underneath it all, Ryan felt the approaching week like weather, inevitable, already in motion, carrying consequences he couldn't fully predict. Monday arrived too fast and not fast enough. The office had a different energy now. The design team moved with the focused intensity of people who knew they were close to something big. Conversations happened in clusters. Creative arguments that sounded like fighting but were actually collaboration. The Atlas campaign had shifted from possibility to probability, and everyone felt it. Ryan spent the morning running security audits on the presentation files they'd use for Wednesday's follow-up meeting with Stratton. Everything needed to be perfect, not just functional, but flawless. No room for technical failure, no chance for Murphy's Law to kick in at the worst possible moment. At 11:30, his phone buzzed. Text from Vanessa. My office, when you have a minute. Ryan saved his work, took the elevator up to 12, and found Vanessa at her desk reviewing what looked like contract language. She glanced up when he knocked. Close the door. He did. The frosted glass offered privacy from casual observation, but not complete invisibility. Anyone walking by could still see 2 figures in conversation, just not details. We have a problem, Vanessa said without preamble. Ryan's stomach dropped. What kind of problem? The good kind, maybe. Stratton called this morning. They want to move the Wednesday meeting up to tomorrow. Something about their board schedule changing, needing to make a decision faster than planned. Tomorrow, as in Tuesday. 2 p.m. Same presentation, same team, but 24 hours earlier than we planned. Vanessa leaned back in her chair, and Ryan saw the tension in her shoulders. Can we be ready? The tech side is ready now. We could present today if needed. It's the creative team I'd worry about. They're ready too. Nervous, but ready. She paused. I'm more concerned about you. Me? Ryan, you were supposed to have until Wednesday to prepare for the possibility of being put on the spot again. If Stratton liked what you said last time, he might want more detail tomorrow, more technical deep dives, more infrastructure questions. Are you comfortable with that? Ryan thought about it. The first time had been terrifying because it was unexpected, but he'd survived it, had actually done well according to Vanessa. A second round would still be stressful, but not shocking. I can handle it, he said. You're sure? Because if you're not comfortable, I can position someone else as the technical lead for the presentation. Make it seem like you're support rather than primary. You're offering me an out. I'm offering you a choice. This is a lot of pressure, Ryan. More than most people in your position would ever face. If you want to step back, there's no shame in that. But there was shame in it, at least for Ryan. Not shame in the traditional sense, but the knowledge that stepping back now would mean choosing safety over growth. And he'd spent 3 years choosing safety, building a life around minimizing risk and protecting Mia from instability. Maybe it was time to choose differently. I'll do it, Ryan said. Whatever Stratton wants to know, I'll answer it. Something shifted in Vanessa's expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. Okay, then we're doing this tomorrow. All hands? Final push? Everything perfect. Everything perfect, Ryan echoed. There's something else. Vanessa stood, moved to the windows, that familiar position she took when conversations got difficult. If we land this account tomorrow, if Stratton signs with us, there's going to be a celebration. Team dinner, drinks, the whole corporate victory lap. You'll be expected to attend. That's fine. It's not fine, Ryan. It's a Tuesday night. You'd need childcare, probably late childcare. And before you say you'll figure it out, I need you to know that I'm not expecting you to sacrifice time with your daughter for office politics. Ryan moved to stand beside her at the windows. You're trying to protect me again. I'm trying to be realistic about your situation. My situation is that I'm a single father with a demanding job and limited flexibility. That's not news to either of us. If we win tomorrow, if there's a team dinner, I'll arrange something for Mia. She'll be fine. Will she? Or will she be another night with a babysitter, another evening when her father chose work over her? The words hit harder than Vanessa probably intended. Ryan felt them land, felt the truth in them, felt the guilt he carried every single day about whether he was screwing up his daughter's childhood with his choices. That's not fair, he said quietly. It's completely fair. You're making sacrifices for this project, for this job, for me. And I'm watching you do it and wondering if I'm asking too much. You're not asking. I'm choosing. Are you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're caught between what you want and what you think you should do. And I don't want to be the reason you lose time with your daughter. Ryan turned to face her directly. Vanessa, look at me. Really look at me. She did. I've been making choices for 3 years based entirely on what's safest for Mia. Stable job, predictable hours, minimal risk. And those were good choices. I don't regret them. But they were also small choices, safe choices. Choices that kept us surviving but not growing. He paused, gathering his thoughts. This project, working with you, taking risks that scare me, these are different choices. And yeah, they mean sometimes Mia has a babysitter when I wish I could be home. But they also mean I'm showing her that her father is capable of more than just getting by. That matters too. Vanessa's eyes were bright. You really believe that? I have to believe it. Otherwise, what am I doing here? She reached out, hesitated, then placed her hand on his arm. The touch was brief but deliberate, an acknowledgement of something they were both feeling but couldn't quite name yet. Okay, Vanessa said softly. Tomorrow. We give Stratton everything we've got. Everything we've got, Ryan agreed. He left her office and spent the rest of the day in preparation mode, testing, retesting, running through every possible scenario. Martin noticed the intensity and wisely stayed quiet, letting Ryan work through whatever was driving him. At 5:45, Ryan shut down his computer and headed for the elevator. His phone rang as he hit the lobby. Mia's after-school program. "Hi, Mr. Cole. This is Rebecca. Just wanted to let you know Mia's developed a slight fever. Nothing serious, probably just a cold coming on, but we thought you should know." Ryan's entire day recalibrated instantly. "How high?" 100.2. "She's resting comfortably, but she's asking for you." "I'm on my way." The drive to Bright Futures took 20 minutes that felt like hours. Ryan's mind raced through logistics. If Mia was sick, she couldn't go to school tomorrow, which meant he'd need to find someone to stay with her. His neighbor worked during the day, his backup sitter was out of town, and he couldn't miss tomorrow's presentation. He found Mia curled on the reading couch in the quiet room, looking small and tired. Her face brightened when she saw him. "Dad!" Ryan scooped her up, felt her forehead. Warm, but not alarming. "Hey, sweetheart. Not feeling good?" "My throat hurts, and I'm cold. Let's get you home." The evening passed in the familiar rhythm of single-parent crisis management. Children's fever reducer, chicken soup, Mia barely touched, pajamas in bed earlier than usual. Ryan sat on the edge of her bed, reading her favorite book, even though she was clearly too tired to follow the story. "Dad?" Her voice was small, scratchy. "Yeah, baby?" "Are you worried about work tomorrow?" Ryan stroked her hair. "A little. We have an important meeting." "Will you get in trouble if you stay home with me?" The question broke his heart. "You think I'd leave you alone when you're sick?" "I don't want you to get in trouble." "I won't get in trouble. And even if I did, taking care of you is more important, always." Mia's eyes were already closing. "You're a good dad." "Thanks, sweetheart. Try to sleep." She was out within minutes. Ryan sat there longer than necessary, watching her breathe, feeling the weight of every choice pressing down on him. Tomorrow's presentation could define his career at Hartwell, could change his relationship with Vanessa, could open doors he'd never imagined walking through. But Mia was sick, and she needed him. At 9 p.m., Ryan texted Vanessa. "Mia has a fever. I'm trying to arrange childcare for tomorrow, but it might not work out. Need to prepare for the possibility that I won't be there." The response came within seconds. "Is she okay?" "Probably just a cold, but she can't go to school tomorrow." "Do you have backup care?" "Working on it." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Call me, now." Ryan stepped into the hallway, careful not to wake Mia, and dialed Vanessa's number. "How high is the fever?" she asked immediately. 100.2. Not dangerous, just uncomfortable." "And you don't have anyone who can stay with her tomorrow?" "My neighbor works, my backup sitter's traveling. I'm calling around, but it's last minute, and everyone I trust has day jobs." Vanessa was quiet for a moment. "What if you brought her to the office?" Ryan almost laughed. "You're joking." "I'm completely serious. Bring Mia to Hartwell tomorrow. Set her up in my office with movies or books or whatever she needs. You'll be in the conference room for the presentation, but if she needs you, you're 30 seconds away." "Vanessa, I can't bring my sick kid to your office." "Why not? My office has a couch, a door that closes. It's quiet. She can rest there while you handle the Stratton meeting. It's not ideal, but it's better than you missing the presentation entirely." "What if she gets worse? What if she needs me during the meeting?" "Then you leave the meeting." "Ryan, I'm not asking you to choose between your daughter and your job. I'm trying to find a solution where you don't have to." Ryan leaned against the hallway wall, overwhelmed by the offer. "You'd really let me bring Mia to the office?" "Of course, she's 7, not a security risk. And honestly, if Stratton has a problem with the fact that our technical lead is a dedicated single father managing a sick kid and a major presentation simultaneously, they're not clients I want anyway." "That's easy to say." "I mean it. Bring her tomorrow. I'll have my assistant set up my office with whatever she needs. We'll make this work." Ryan closed his eyes, feeling something crack open in his chest. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Just be ready to nail that presentation." "I will be." "And Ryan, I meant what I said. If Mia needs you during the meeting, you leave. No hesitation, no guilt. She comes first. Always. They hung up, and Ryan stood in the hallway of his small apartment feeling like the ground had shifted underneath him. Vanessa had just offered him something no boss ever had: the acknowledgement that he was a father first, an employee second, and that both roles mattered. Tuesday morning dawned gray and heavy with approaching rain. Mia's fever had broken overnight, leaving her tired but functional. Ryan packed her backpack with books, her tablet loaded with movies, coloring supplies, and the stuffed dolphin she slept with every night. "We're going to my office today," he explained while making breakfast. "You're going to rest in a quiet room while I'm in a meeting." "Will I be alone?" "No, baby. You'll be in my boss's office, and I'll check on you every chance I get. If you need me, you tell the nice assistant outside the door, and she'll get me immediately. Okay?" "Okay." Mia picked at her toast. "Is this because I'm sick?" "This is because you're sick and I couldn't find anyone to stay with you, and my boss is being very kind by letting you rest at the office." "She sounds nice." "She is," Ryan said, realizing he meant it. Vanessa was a lot of things: demanding, intense, complicated, but she was also kind in ways that mattered. They arrived at Hartwell at 1 p.m. Ryan had timed it deliberately, wanting to get Mia settled before the 2 p.m. presentation. Vanessa's assistant, a woman named Jennifer, who looked surprised but not displeased, showed them into Vanessa's office. The space had been transformed. The couch had blankets and pillows. There was a small table with crackers, juice boxes, and ginger ale. The television mounted on the wall was set to a streaming services kids section. "Ms. Hart wanted to make sure your daughter was comfortable," Jennifer explained. "If she needs anything, bathroom, snacks, you just press this button." She indicated an intercom on the desk. "I'll come immediately." Mia looked around with wide eyes. "This is really nice." "It is," Ryan agreed. He helped her settle on the couch, got her set up with a movie, made sure she had everything she needed. "I'll be in a meeting for maybe an hour. You stay here, rest, and if you need me, press the button." "I know, Dad." He kissed her forehead. "I love you, sweetheart." "Love you too. Good luck with your meeting." Ryan left Vanessa's office and walked to conference room B, feeling like he was operating on some alternate plane of reality where bosses cared about their employees' children and impossible situations had workable solutions. The creative team was already assembled, running through last-minute prep. Vanessa stood at the head of the table reviewing notes. She looked up when Ryan entered. "Mia settled?" she asked quietly. "Yeah, thank you for this, for all of it." "How's she feeling?" "Tired, but better. Fever's gone." "Good." Vanessa checked her watch. "Stratton's team will be here in 10 minutes. Everyone ready?" Nods around the table. The energy felt different than last Thursday. Less nervous, more determined. They'd done this once already. They could do it again. The Stratton team arrived precisely at 2 p.m. Same 4 people, same collective air of having seen everything and been impressed by nothing. Marcus Stratton shook hands with practiced efficiency, accepted coffee he probably wouldn't drink, and settled into his chair with the posture of someone prepared to be disappointed. Vanessa started the presentation. "Thank you for moving this meeting up. We appreciate the urgency, and we're ready to dive into implementation details." For the next 40 minutes, the team walked through logistics, timeline, deliverables, team structure, quality controls. Stratton asked sharp questions. The team answered sharply. Everything was working exactly as it should. Then Stratton turned to Ryan. "Last time we talked, you outlined your backup systems. I want to go deeper. What's your disaster recovery protocol? If everything fails simultaneously, servers, backups, network, how do you recover critical data?" Ryan stood, moved to the front of the room. "Simultaneous total failure is statistically unlikely because our systems are geographically distributed. But if it happened, we have offline encrypted backups stored in 3 separate locations. One on-site, one in a secure facility in New Jersey, one cloud-based through a provider with redundant data centers. Recovery time in a worst-case scenario would be approximately 6 hours for full system restoration. 6 hours is a long time to be down, which is why we also maintain hot standby systems. If primary servers fail, secondary systems activate automatically within 90 seconds. Your campaign wouldn't experience downtime, it would experience a brief transition that most users wouldn't notice." Stratton's expression didn't change. "And if your technical lead gets hit by a bus tomorrow?" What happens to all this institutional knowledge you're describing? It was a test. Obviously a test. Stratton was pushing to see how deep Hartwell's infrastructure really went. Every system I've built is documented, Ryan said calmly. Complete technical specifications, recovery procedures, decision trees for common failure scenarios. If I disappeared tomorrow, any competent engineer could maintain what I've created. But more importantly, I've trained the IT team on these systems. Knowledge isn't siloed, it's distributed. Show me the documentation. Ryan opened his laptop, pulled up the technical wiki he'd created. Hundreds of pages of carefully organized information, diagrams, procedures, troubleshooting guides. He projected it on the conference room screen. Stratton studied it for a long moment. This is comprehensive. Technical infrastructure only works if it's maintainable. Documentation isn't optional, it's essential. For the first time, something that might have been approval crossed Stratton's face. You've thought this through. I've lived through enough disasters to know what happens when you don't. Stratton turned to Vanessa. This is the level of competence I expect from agencies I work with. Too many creative shops have brilliant concepts and terrible execution. You've clearly invested in both. Vanessa smiled. We believe ideas are only as good as our ability to deliver them. The meeting continued for another 20 minutes, covering contract terms and launch schedules. Ryan returned to his seat, pulse gradually slowing from the adrenaline spike of being put on the spot again. At 3:15, the intercom on the conference room phone crackled, Jennifer's voice, apologetic. Ms. Hart, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Mia is asking for her father. Every head in the room turned. Ryan felt his face flush. Vanessa didn't hesitate. Ryan, go. We've got this. I'm in the middle of... Go. Your daughter needs you. That's more important. Ryan stood, acutely aware of Stratton watching this entire exchange. I apologize for the interruption. Stratton waved a dismissive hand. Family emergencies happen. Go take care of your kid. Ryan left the conference room and walked quickly to Vanessa's office. Mia sat on the couch looking pale and teary. Hey, sweetheart, what's wrong? My stomach hurts. I feel sick. Ryan pressed his hand to her forehead. Still no fever, but she looked miserable. Okay, baby, let's get you home. He gathered her things quickly, texted Vanessa a brief explanation, and carried Mia down to his car. She curled against him in the elevator, small and trusting, and Ryan felt the familiar weight of single parenthood, that constant awareness that he was all she had, that his choices directly affected her well-being. The drive home was quiet. Mia dozed in the passenger seat, occasionally making small, uncomfortable sounds. Ryan kept one hand on her shoulder, reassuring himself she was okay while navigating traffic with the other. At home, he got her settled on the couch with a bucket nearby just in case, made weak tea she sipped reluctantly, and sat beside her running through the mental checklist of single-parent medical decisions. Was this bad enough for urgent care? Probably not. Just a virus working through her system. Keep her hydrated, watch for warning signs, be ready to act if things got worse. His phone buzzed at 4:30, text from Vanessa. How is she? Stomach bug. She'll be okay but needs rest and monitoring. And you? Are you okay? Ryan looked at Mia sleeping fitfully beside him, thought about the presentation he'd just walked out of, the professional risk he'd taken by choosing his daughter over a client meeting. Yeah, I'm okay. Stratton signed the contract. Ryan read the message 3 times, making sure he understood. We got the account? We got the account. $8 million annually, 3-year agreement, everything we wanted, the team's celebrating. That's incredible. It is. And Ryan, after you left, Stratton said something. He said any company that prioritizes family the way we just did is a company he trusts to prioritize his account properly. Your leaving to take care of Mia didn't cost us the deal. It sealed it. Ryan stared at his phone, trying to process that. His biggest professional fear, that choosing Mia would cost him everything, had somehow become the thing that made Stratton trust Hartwell. I don't know what to say, he typed. Say you'll join us for dinner tomorrow night when Mia's feeling better. The team wants to celebrate and you're part of this win. I'll be there. Good. Take care of your daughter. We'll talk tomorrow. Ryan set down his phone and looked at Mia, still sleeping, her face peaceful despite the discomfort. 3 years of careful choices, of prioritizing her above everything else, of building a life around stability and safety. And now this, a moment where choosing her had somehow led to professional success instead of disaster. Maybe the two things weren't opposed after all. Maybe being a good father and taking professional risks could coexist. Maybe he'd been thinking about it wrong all along. Mia stirred, opened her eyes. Dad? Right here, baby. Did you get in trouble for leaving your meeting? Ryan smiled, stroked her hair. No, sweetheart. We won. We got the big account we were hoping for. Because you left to help me? Yeah. Turns out people respect fathers who take care of their kids. Mia smiled weakly. That's good. You're a really good dad. Thanks, baby. Now try to get some sleep. She did, curling into his side like she used to when she was smaller. Ryan sat there on their worn couch in their small apartment, holding his daughter and thinking about the path that had led him here. All those careful choices, all that risk avoidance, all those years of being invisible. And then Vanessa asking if he thought she was pretty. Opening a door he hadn't known existed, showing him that visibility didn't have to mean vulnerability, that being seen could be strength instead of weakness. Tomorrow night there would be a celebration. A team dinner where Ryan would officially be part of something bigger than routine IT work, where he'd sit beside Vanessa in a context that wasn't about presentations or deadlines, but about shared success. And after that, they'd promised to decide, to figure out what they were to each other, whether this thing between them could exist outside the pressure cooker of the Atlas campaign. Ryan didn't know what that conversation would look like, didn't know if what they felt was real enough to survive outside controlled circumstances. But he knew one thing for certain, he wasn't going to choose invisibility anymore. Whatever happened next, he was choosing to be seen. By Vanessa, by his colleagues, by himself. And maybe that was the real transformation. Not becoming someone different, but finally having the courage to be fully who he'd always been. A father, yes. An IT engineer, absolutely. But also a man capable of wanting more than just survival. Capable of taking risks that scared him. Capable of building something new without destroying what he'd already built. Mia's breathing evened out into real sleep. Ryan settled deeper into the couch, closed his eyes, and let himself imagine what tomorrow might bring. Celebration, conversation, choices that would define the next chapter of his life. Whatever came next, he'd face it the same way he'd faced everything else. By being exactly who he was, refusing to apologize for it, and trusting that being genuine was enough. It would have to be. Mia's recovery took 2 days. By Thursday morning, her color had returned and she was asking about the homework she'd missed, which Ryan took as a sign she was genuinely better. He dropped her at school with strict instructions to tell the nurse if she felt sick again, then drove to Hartwell feeling like he was returning to a place that had fundamentally shifted in his absence. The office had a different energy. People smiled at him in the elevator. Designers he barely knew nodded acknowledgement as he passed through the lobby. Word had spread about the Stratton account, about Ryan's role in landing it, about him leaving the final meeting to care for his sick daughter, and somehow that becoming the thing that sealed the deal. Martin practically tackled him when he reached his desk. "Dude, you're a legend. Do you know what people are saying about you?" Ryan set down his laptop bag. "I can imagine. They're saying Stratton was so impressed with your technical knowledge that he told Vanessa he'd only work with Hartwell if you were the lead engineer on his account. They're saying you walked out of the pitch meeting and he respected it so much he signed immediately. They're saying, Martin, I'm sure half of that is exaggeration. Doesn't matter. You're the IT guy who became essential to the biggest account win in 2 years. That's not exaggeration. That's fact." Ryan powered up his monitors, trying to process this new reality. For 3 years, he'd been invisible by design, competent but unremarkable. Now suddenly he was visible, talked about, a name people knew. It felt disorienting. At 10 a.m., his calendar pinged with a meeting request. Vanessa's office, 11 a.m. Subject line, postmortem and next steps. Ryan took the elevator up to 12, knocked on Vanessa's door. "Come in." She sat at her desk and Ryan was struck by how different she looked. Not the armor-plated executive from that first computer repair visit, not even the vulnerable woman from the coffee shop. Something in between. Professional, but genuine, controlled, but warm. "How's Mia?" Vanessa asked immediately. "Better." Back at school today. Good. I was worried. She gestured to the chair across from her desk. Sit. We need to talk. Ryan sat, suddenly aware this was the conversation they'd been building toward. 3 weeks of working together, of crossing lines and testing boundaries, of discovering that professional collaboration could become something more complicated and more real. Stratton's team sent the signed contracts yesterday, Vanessa began. 3 years, $8 million annually, with performance clauses that could increase it to 10 if we exceed benchmarks. It's the biggest win Hartwell's had since I took this position. That's incredible. It is. And Ryan, you're a significant part of why we got it. Not just the technical infrastructure, though that was essential, but the way you handled yourself under pressure. Stratton was testing us constantly, and you never faltered. I was terrified most of the time, Vanessa smiled. It didn't show. That's what professionalism is, being terrified and doing it anyway. She paused. There are going to be changes because of this win. Hartwell's financial position improved significantly, which means no layoffs. It also means I have budget for team expansion. The executive board has approved a new position, Director of Technical Operations, reporting directly to me, overseeing all infrastructure for major accounts. Ryan's pulse quickened. That's a significant role. It is, and I'm offering it to you. The words hung in the air between them. Ryan tried to process what she was saying. A director position, real authority, real salary increase, real visibility. Everything he'd carefully avoided for 3 years because risk felt too dangerous when he had Mia to protect. I don't have director experience, Ryan said carefully. You have 3 years of competent IT work and 3 weeks of proving you can handle high-pressure situations with grace. That's more valuable than any MBA. Vanessa, before you say no, hear me out. This position would come with a 40% salary increase, full benefits including enhanced childcare stipends, flexible scheduling for Mia's needs, and direct oversight of the technical team supporting our top accounts. You'd be building infrastructure, making strategic decisions, shaping how Hartwell approaches technology integration. Ryan stared at her. That's life-changing money. It's what you're worth, what you've proven you're worth. Vanessa leaned forward. But I need to be clear about something. I'm offering you this position because you've earned it, because you're genuinely the best person for it, because Stratton specifically requested you lead the technical side of their account. This isn't about our personal situation. This is about your professional competence. People will think it's about our personal situation anyway. Let them think whatever they want. The work will speak for itself. She paused. But Ryan, if you take this position, we need to have the other conversation, the one we've been avoiding for 3 weeks, about what we are to each other outside of work context. There it was. The question they'd been circling since that moment in her office when she'd asked if he thought she was pretty. I know, Ryan said quietly. I've been thinking about it constantly. And? Ryan chose his words carefully. 3 weeks ago, I was invisible. Deliberately, carefully invisible. I'd built an entire life around not being seen because visibility felt dangerous. Then you asked me a question that required honesty, and I answered honestly, and suddenly everything changed. Vanessa waited. Working with you these past weeks has shown me that I was wrong about invisibility. I thought it was protection, but it was actually prison. I was so afraid of risk that I'd stopped allowing myself to want anything beyond survival. And then you offered me visibility, not as exposure, but as possibility. Does that make sense? It makes perfect sense. So when you ask what we are to each other, I think the answer is that we're two people who accidentally saw each other's truth and recognized something that mattered. Whether that becomes something more, whether we can build something outside the pressure of this project, I want to try, if you do. Vanessa stood, moved to the windows, that familiar position she took when conversations got difficult. I'm 43 years old, Ryan. I've spent 20 years building a career that's supposed to make me happy, and I hate who I've become in the process. Not the work. I still love the work. But the performance, the armor, the constant pretense that I'm fine when I'm actually drowning in loneliness. She turned to face him. You saw those photos, saw through all the professional polish to the person underneath, and you didn't judge me for it. You didn't use it against me. You just saw me and treated that like it mattered. Do you know how rare that is? I think I do, yeah. I want to try this, whatever this is. But I need you to understand the complications. If we pursue a relationship, there will be HR scrutiny, power dynamic concerns, people who will say I'm taking advantage of you or you're using me for advancement. We'll have to be careful, transparent, maybe work with different departments to avoid direct reporting if that becomes necessary. I understand. Do you? Because this could get messy, Ryan, really messy, and you have Mia to think about. If this goes wrong, if office politics make your position untenable, you'd be the one facing consequences. Ryan stood, crossed to where Vanessa stood by the windows. Can I tell you something about Mia? Of course. 2 nights ago, when she was sick, she asked if I'd gotten in trouble for leaving the meeting to help her. She was worried that choosing her had cost me professionally. And I got to tell her no, that actually choosing her had helped, that people respected fathers who prioritized their children. Where are you going with this? I'm going with this. I've spent 3 years teaching Mia through my actions that stability means avoiding risk, that safety requires invisibility, that wanting more than survival is dangerous. What kind of lesson is that for a kid? That you should be small and careful and never reach for anything that might not work out. Vanessa's eyes glistened. If I pursue this relationship with you, Ryan continued, if I take the director position, if I choose visibility and risk and the possibility of something real, I'm teaching Mia a different lesson. That courage matters. That authentic connection is worth fighting for. That you can be a responsible parent and still want things for yourself. That seems like a better lesson. You've really thought this through. I've had 2 days of taking care of a sick kid to think about nothing else. Vanessa laughed, and it sounded like relief. So what do? We try. Carefully, transparently, with full awareness of the complications. We talk to HR. We establish boundaries. We make sure everyone knows this is genuine and mutual, and not some power dynamic exploitation. And we see if what we feel in this office translates to real life. That's terrifyingly reasonable. I'm a terrifyingly reasonable person. No, you're not. You're a single father who took enormous professional risks to spend 3 weeks working with a woman who terrifies most people. That's not reasonable. That's brave. Ryan moved closer, close enough to see the fine details of Vanessa's face, the places where she looked tired and human and real. Can I ask you something? Anything. That first day when I saw those photos and you asked if I thought you were pretty, what were you actually asking? Vanessa considered the question. I think I was asking if the person in those photos still existed. If the woman who laughed on beaches and read books and got dirt on her hands in gardens was still somewhere inside me, or if I'd killed her completely by becoming Vanessa Hart, Director of Creative Strategy. And when you said I looked beautiful, that I looked like someone you'd want to know, you were telling me she was still there, still visible to someone who was really looking. She is still there. She's standing right here. I know. I'm starting to remember what she feels like. They stood together in the quiet office, New York stretching out below them in its endless complexity. 2 people who'd accidentally found each other in the space between professional performance and genuine connection. The team dinner's tonight, Vanessa said. 7 p.m. at Marcello's. Will you be there? I'll be there. My neighbor agreed to watch Mia. Good. Because I'm going to publicly acknowledge your role in landing the Stratton account. And after that, after we've celebrated with the team and done all the professional recognition that needs to happen, I'd like to take you to coffee, just us. Not as director and technical lead, as Vanessa and Ryan. I'd like that too. It's a date then, our first official date. Ryan smiled. Should I be nervous? Probably. I'm terrifying, remember? You're not terrifying, you're just careful about who sees the real you. Not anymore. Not with you. Ryan left her office feeling like gravity had changed direction. The elevator ride down to floor 4 felt different. The hallway looked different. Even his desk seemed to exist in a new configuration of possibility. Martin glanced up when Ryan sat down. Well, what did Vanessa want? She offered me a director position. Martin's jaw dropped. You're joking. Director of Technical Operations, overseeing infrastructure for major accounts. Holy shit, Ryan, that's huge. Did you accept? I'm considering it. Considering? Dude, that's a massive promotion. Why wouldn't you accept immediately? Because accepting means visibility, Ryan thought. It means choosing to be seen, to be essential, to be the kind of person people depend on for more than just password resets. It means trusting that I'm capable of more than survival. Just want to make sure I understand the full scope before I commit, Ryan said aloud. Martin shook his head. Man, you're more cautious than anyone I've ever met. But congratulations, you earned this. The afternoon passed in a blur of routine work that felt anything but routine. Every email, every ticket, every system check felt like the last time Ryan would do these tasks as a regular IT engineer. Tomorrow, or whenever he officially accepted Vanessa's offer, he'd be something different. Someone different. At 5:45, Ryan left the office and drove to pick up Mia from school. She bounced into the car with the energy of a fully recovered 7-year-old. Dad, we learned about the water cycle today. Did you know the water we drink is the same water dinosaurs drank millions of years ago? I did know that, actually. That's so cool. We're drinking dinosaur water. Ryan smiled, pulled into traffic. Hey, sweetheart, I need to tell you something. I have a work dinner tonight. Mrs. Chen is going to watch you. Mia's face fell slightly. Another work thing? This one's a celebration. Remember that big account I was working on? We got it, so the team is having a dinner to celebrate. Will you be home late? Probably by 9. But Mia, this is important. This account, this project, it's changing things for us. In good ways. Like how? Ryan thought about how to explain promotion and salary increases to a 7-year-old. Like maybe we can afford to take a real vacation this summer. Maybe to the ocean so you can see actual marine biology instead of just reading about it. Mia's eyes went wide. Really? The actual ocean? The actual ocean, if you want. Can we see dolphins? We can definitely try to see dolphins. She bounced in her seat with excitement that made Ryan's chest ache. When was the last time he'd promised her something beyond just getting by? When was the last time he'd had the margin to offer experiences instead of just stability? That evening, Ryan dropped Mia at Mrs. Chen's apartment, endured her excitement about possible dolphins, and drove to Marcello's feeling nervous in a way that had nothing to do with professional performance. The restaurant was upscale but not intimidating, white tablecloths and good wine, but also the kind of place where laughter was encouraged. The creative team had taken over a private room in the back. Ryan arrived to find everyone already there, drinks flowing, the energy celebratory and genuine. Vanessa stood at the head of the table, and when she saw Ryan, something in her expression softened. There he is, our technical genius. The team applauded. Ryan felt his face flush. Sit, sit, Vanessa gestured to the empty chair beside her. We were just about to toast. Ryan took the seat, acutely aware of Vanessa's proximity, of the team watching them with curiosity and warmth. Vanessa raised her glass. 3 weeks ago, we were handed an impossible timeline and a client with notoriously exacting standards. Everyone told us we'd never land Stratton Technologies. Too difficult, too demanding, too many agencies had failed before us. But we didn't listen to everyone. We listened to each other, trusted each other's expertise, and built something extraordinary together. She looked around the table, making eye contact with each team member. This win isn't about individual brilliance. It's about collaborative excellence. Every designer who worked late perfecting concepts, every copywriter who fought for the right words, every account manager who navigated client demands, you all made this possible. But I want to specifically acknowledge Ryan Cole, who joined this project with 72 hours notice and proceeded to build technical infrastructure so solid that our client trusted us with 3 years of business based largely on his competence. The team applauded again. Ryan tried to look gracious and mostly just felt overwhelmed. To the Atlas team, Vanessa said, raising her glass higher, may this be the first of many impossible victories. To the Atlas team, everyone echoed. Dinner was excellent, the kind of meal Ryan never ordered for himself because he was too busy calculating whether that money could be better spent on Mia's school supplies or winter coat. But tonight, he let himself enjoy it. Let himself be part of this celebration. Let himself feel like he belonged in rooms like this with people like this. Over dessert, one of the designers leaned over. Hey Ryan, is it true you walked out of the final Stratton meeting because your daughter was sick? Yeah, she needed me. And Stratton signed anyway? He did. The designer shook her head, smiling. That's amazing. Most places would have made you choose between your kid and your career. Vanessa just let you leave. Ryan glanced at Vanessa, who was deep in conversation with the copywriting lead. She understood that my daughter comes first, always. That's rare. Treasure that. I intend to. The celebration wound down around 9:30. People started calling cars, exchanging hugs, making plans for weekend brunches to extend the victory lap. Ryan found Vanessa by the coat check. That was a good dinner, he said. It was. The team needed to celebrate together. She paused. There's a coffee shop 2 blocks from here. Open until midnight. Still interested in that date? Ryan's heart kicked. Absolutely. They walked through Manhattan in the October evening, close enough that their arms occasionally brushed. The coffee shop was small, quiet, the kind of place that survived on neighborhood regulars rather than tourist traffic. They ordered black coffee for Ryan, green tea for Vanessa, and chose a corner booth away from the handful of other customers. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Vanessa laughed. This is ridiculous. We've spent 3 weeks working intimately together, and now I'm nervous about having coffee. Me too. Why? What is it about taking off the professional context that makes this harder? Ryan thought about it. Because at work we have roles, structure, clear boundaries even when we're crossing them. This is just us. No project to hide behind, no deadlines creating artificial urgency. Just 2 people trying to figure out if what we feel is real. And is it? Real, I mean? I think so, but I've been wrong before. My ex-wife and I thought we were real, and that dissolved the moment parenting got difficult. Vanessa wrapped her hands around her teacup. I was engaged once, 10 years ago. He was a lawyer, brilliant and ambitious and completely wrong for me. I couldn't see it at the time because we looked good together on paper. Same professional level, same social circle, same expensive taste in restaurants. But we never actually saw each other. We saw the performance, the presentation, the version we wanted the other person to be. What happened? He proposed at a charity gala in front of 200 people. Very romantic, very public. I said yes because saying no would have been humiliating for both of us. Then I spent 6 months planning a wedding I didn't want to a man I didn't really know. 3 weeks before the ceremony, I called it off, moved out, gave back the ring, endured months of people telling me I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. Did you? Make a mistake? The only mistake was saying yes in the first place. Ending it was the smartest thing I've ever done. She looked at Ryan directly. I tell you that because I need you to know, I don't do performance relationships anymore. If this thing between us is going to work, it has to be real. Messy, complicated, sometimes difficult, but real. I can't be Vanessa Hart, Director of Creative Strategy with you. I have to be just Vanessa. I don't want Vanessa Hart anyway. I want the woman who keeps photos of herself on beaches because she's trying to remember what happiness looks like. Vanessa's eyes filled. You see me. You actually see me. You see me too. The single dad who's terrified he's screwing up his daughter's life, who works too much and worries constantly and has no idea what he's doing most of the time. You see that and you don't look away. Why would I look away? That's the interesting part. They talked for 2 hours about Vanessa's childhood in Connecticut, daughter of academics who valued achievement over affection, about Ryan's parents in Ohio, loving but distant, who'd never quite understood why their son moved to New York, about Mia's mother, about the engagement Vanessa had ended, about loneliness and the different shapes it took. They talked about work too, but differently. Not strategy and deadlines, but the satisfaction of building something well, the exhaustion of constant performance, the weird joy of solving problems nobody else cared about. At midnight, the coffee shop staff started cleaning tables pointedly. Ryan and Vanessa stood, walked back out into the Manhattan night. I should get home, Ryan said. Mrs. Chen's probably wondering where I am. Can I ask you something first? Anything. Vanessa stepped closer, close enough that Ryan could see the vulnerability in her eyes. If we do this, if we really try to build something together, Are you going to run when it gets difficult? When the complications pile up and people start asking questions and it would be easier to just go back to being invisible? No, I'm not going to run. How can you be sure? Because I've spent 3 years running already. Running from risk, from visibility, from anything that might disrupt the careful stability I built for Mia. And you know what I learned? Stability without possibility is just stagnation. I don't want that anymore. For me or for her. Vanessa reached out, took his hand. The touch was deliberate, public, a choice they were both making. Okay, then let's try this. Carefully, transparently, with full awareness that it might not work. And if it does work, then we figure out what comes next. Together. Ryan squeezed her hand. I can live with that uncertainty. Good. Because I'm terrified in doing this anyway. That's what courage is. They stood on a Manhattan sidewalk at midnight, holding hands like teenagers, two people choosing visibility over safety. Ryan thought about the path that had led him here. From invisible IT guy to technical director. From single father, barely surviving, to man capable of wanting partnership. From someone who avoided risk to someone who walked toward it deliberately. I should really go, he said, not moving. You should, Vanessa agreed, also not moving. Mia needs consistency. I can't stay out all night. Of course not. But I want to kiss you first. Vanessa smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. Ryan leaned in, and Vanessa met him halfway. The kiss was soft, tentative, carrying 3 weeks of tension and possibility. When they pulled apart, Vanessa was smiling. Worth the wait, she said. Definitely worth the wait. They separated reluctantly, making plans to talk tomorrow, to navigate HR conversations together, to figure out logistics. Ryan walked to his car feeling like the world had rearranged itself into a better configuration. The drive home took 20 minutes. Mrs. Chen was watching television when Ryan knocked, assured him Mia had been perfect, accepted payment for the late hours. Ryan carried his sleeping daughter up to their apartment, tucked her into bed, and stood in the doorway watching her breathe. 3 weeks ago, his life had been small and careful and predictable. Now it was expansive and uncertain and full of possibility. He'd accepted a promotion he hadn't sought, started a relationship with complications he couldn't fully predict, chosen visibility over the safety of invisibility. And somehow, standing in his small apartment watching his daughter sleep, Ryan felt more certain than he had in years. Not certain that everything would work out perfectly. Life didn't offer those guarantees. But certain that he was choosing deliberately instead of just reacting, building instead of just surviving. His phone buzzed, text from Vanessa. Thank you for tonight, for everything. Sleep well. Ryan typed back. Thank you for seeing me. For all of it. Always, came the reply. Ryan set down his phone and walked to the window. Manhattan spread out below, 8 million people living their complicated lives, making their own choices about risk and safety and what mattered most. Somewhere in that city, Vanessa was probably standing at her own window, thinking about the same things. They'd figure it out together. The HR conversations, the team dynamics, the careful balance of professional authority and personal relationship. They'd navigate Mia's questions about why Dad had a girlfriend, handle the inevitable office gossip, establish boundaries that protected both their careers and their connection. It wouldn't be easy. Nothing worthwhile was. But Ryan had learned something essential over the past 3 weeks. Being seen was better than being safe. Authentic connection mattered more than perfect stability. And sometimes the bravest thing you could do was let someone see your truth and trust they wouldn't use it against you. He'd spent 3 years being the single dad nobody noticed, the IT guy who fixed things quietly and disappeared. Now he was Ryan Cole, Director of Technical Operations, partner to Vanessa Hart, father to Mia, man who'd chosen visibility and courage over careful invisibility. And standing in his small apartment with his daughter, sleeping safely in the next room and possibilities stretching out before him like unexplored territory, Ryan felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Real, substantial hope that life could be more than just getting through each day. That he could be both a responsible father and a man who wanted partnership. That choosing risk didn't mean abandoning stability. It meant building something better. Outside, the city lights flickered like promises. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new complications, new choices to make. But tonight, Ryan let himself feel grateful for Vanessa's courage in asking if he thought she was pretty, for his own courage in answering honestly, for the 3 weeks that had transformed both of them from people performing their lives into people actually living them. The water-stained ceiling of his apartment had never looked so beautiful. The fold-out couch had never felt so comfortable. The small space he'd shared with Mia for 3 years suddenly felt like exactly the right size for a life that was finally, genuinely his own. Ryan closed the curtains, checked on Mia one more time, and settled onto his couch with the quiet satisfaction of someone who'd taken enormous risks and discovered they were worth taking. Tomorrow, he'd accept Vanessa's job offer. Tomorrow, he'd start navigating their relationship with transparency and care. Tomorrow, he'd begin building the next chapter of his life. But tonight, he let himself rest in the certainty that he'd made the right choice. Not the safe choice, not the careful choice, but the right one. And that was enough.